Okay.
Could we ask the chair to please come to the...
Good afternoon, colleagues. I think we have the quorum, so we better start. Let's first start this afternoon session with some excellent news. I'm delighted to inform you that we have received an official invitation from Mauritius to host the 13th session of the Intergovernmental Committee in Port Louis. We will further discuss this matter tomorrow under item 19. In the meantime, Mauritius, on behalf of the committee, I sincerely thank you for this invitation. Now, let us go back to the adoption of draft decision 12-11 on the report of the evaluation body on its work in 2017. We had to end our morning session in the middle of examining paragraph 8, so we will continue from there. Can we see paragraph 8 on the screen? Yes. So I think before the lunch, we were about to reach a consensus. Algeria made an amendment to paragraph 8, and instead of the convention, Algeria proposed inscriptions on the lists. And we were thinking that with this amendment, we could have the consensus on this paragraph. I'm seeing Algeria. You have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, et nous remercions tous ceux qui se sont joints à nous avec cet amendement. Nous souhaiterions juste que, pour être complet, que le mot la convention soit biffé pour que tout le monde ait une lecture claire, voilà, une lecture claire de l'amendement tel qu'il était présenté. Donc, les inscriptions sur la liste ne cherchent pas à établir un système de propriété, etc., jusqu'à la fin. Et à ce sujet aussi, nous souhaiterions entendre, si cela est possible, le Legal Advisor, et qu'elle nous donne sa lecture de cet amendement en premier, et ensuite qu'elle nous rappelle quels sont les mandats des uns et des autres, et qui peut et qui ne peut pas interpréter la Convention. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. So I give the floor to legal advisor.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. To reply to the question asked by the distinguished delegate of Algeria, first of all, I wish to confirm that it is the interpretation of the convention belongs to the states parties of the convention because they are the ones who actually drafted the rule and adopted the rule, meaning the convention. But certainly the committee can recommend to the states parties how they wish to interpret the convention. That's for one point. However, now with regard to the specific paragraph that has been, with the new amendments that have been proposed by the distinguished delegate of Algeria, the changes do not seem actually to address the concerns that have been raised by the distinguished of Algeria. Thank you.
Thank you. I understand the explanation by the legal advisor was satisfactory for Algeria. So if there is no other objection, maybe we can move to adopt the para as amended by Algeria. Any objection to that? I see no objection. Para 8 is adopted. Oh, Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's after the adoption, my intervention. So it is adopted? Yeah. Actually, I sent a small amendment. Remember, I told you that I have a new paragraph 8, but after examining 8 and 9 and 10 and so on, its place, finally, it is a new, let's say it is 5 bis. With your indulgence, can we go back to this new paragraph 5 bis that is on the screen?
Okay, so we have the proposal by Palestine, Cyprus, Algeria, Armenia, Afghanistan, Côte d'Ivoire as a 5 bis. Is there any reaction from the committee members to this new amendment? I see Philippines. You have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. We thank the committee members who submitted this amendment, and we can add our name as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. We're adding your name. Any other reaction? Armenia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. We have discussed this earlier with the list of few co-sponsors of this paragraph. I would like to suggest adding the word all before the norms and principles are not in line with the objectives of the Convention and all norms and principles of the international law.
Thank you, Armenia.
Thank you.
Secretary will reflect your amendment. I've seen Senegal asking for the floor. No? Okay. Okay, you co-sponsor the amendment. Okay, let's add Senegal to 5 bis as co-sponsor. Any reaction with regard to the amendment? Mongolia, you would like to take the floor or co-sponsor?
Co-sponsor.
Okay, co-sponsor. Congo, would you also like to co-sponsor 5 bis? Okay. I see Hungary. Would you like to make a comment with regard to the proposal by Armenia? Okay. Please, go ahead, proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would like to ask the sponsor of the amendment to speak about the rationale behind the proposal, as it is standard procedure with new amendments, especially the ones brought forth during the examination of the decision. Could we have, I understand it's Palestine who proposed this paragraph, could we have the rationale and the explanation behind the proposed text, in particular the part which is in the end, that are not in line with, etc. If we can have an explanation of the rationale behind the amendment. Thank you.
So you want Palestine to explain the rationale behind the amendment? So can I give the floor to Palestine?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I thought that it was clear, the amendment. The purpose of this amendment, and it has been already raised several times in the committee works, it is just to say that whenever it comes to a nomination file, we encourage submissionary state parties to avoid any, how do you say, controversial titles or appellations or expressions, and to abide by the international law in order just to say that here we are not dealing with politics, we are dealing with the protection of the intangible cultural heritage. And that's why we are encouraging state parties to avoid any expression or any vocabulary that may create confusions. This is the first thing. Second thing, everybody agrees that the expressions and the wording should be in line with the objectives of the convention. I don't think that our colleague from Hungary will oppose this. And finally, respecting the norms and principles of the international law, this is binding to all UN agencies and all the intergovernmental committees. So this is the rationale behind it. I hope that this answers the concern of our colleague from Hungary. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I think our secretary would like to take the floor for a brief explanation. Mr. Curtis.
It's not an explanation, it's a question. Is it the objectives of the convention or the spirit of the convention?
Palestine, please.
Oh, well, it is a little bit more appropriate to say spirit of the convention. Yes, yes, I agree. Thank you.
Thank you. So we're changing into spirit. And I see Algeria asking for the floor. Algeria, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Non, c'est juste d'aller dans le sens de l'explication qui vient d'être donnée et de donner peut-être un exemple pratique de l'application de ce paragraphe. Il y a quelques années, nous avions présenté un dossier à inscrire sur la liste représentative et effectivement, ce dossier a été inscrit par la suite. Toutefois, le titre comportait une notion, un mot qui pouvait être mal interprété et nous avions discuté avec quelques États membres, dont un État membre qui avait exprimé des concerns, des réserves sur ce mot-là, et de manière amicale et bilatérale et dans l'esprit de la Convention, nous avons entrepris des démarches pour changer le titre de notre présentation de notre dossier, qui était plus un problème de traduction qu'autre chose. Donc nous avons déjà à l'esprit un aspect, une application pratique pour ce paragraphe que nous avons présenté. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Algeria. I think we all understand the importance of this paragraph, and there is no objection from the floor, as far as I can see, for the adoption. With a minor amendment coming from Armenia, can we adopt it as a whole, the paragraph? Do we have any objection? I see Hungary. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't want to object. I understand that the original language was the French, I mean, for this amendment. The English towards the end, the norms and principles of the international law, I don't think we need the article there. I am not clear about the Armenian proposal now, which is before the norms. What is the status of that? There is a typing error up in titles of nomination, but that will be clear later. Well, we are hesitating a little bit. We understand now better the rationale behind it, although we don't know the exact case that was referred to by Algeria. I'm also a bit dubitative about changing from objectives of the convention, which is clear, it's Article 2 of the convention, to spirit of the convention, which is less tangible, so to say. So while I understand the rationale now, and I agree with the purpose of the paragraph, I am a bit hesitating about the actual wording of it. In particular, changing from objectives to spirit. Is that something that has been used several times and is appropriate to be used in such a context? Maybe the legal advisor could advise us on that, as well as the last part of the paragraph referring to the norms and principles of international law, which of course we are always expected to abide by. So my reservations are not about substance and content, it's about the wording. But I hope this can be cleared quickly and we can go along with the consensus. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. I see Armenia, you have the floor.
Thank you. If I may suggest another change, not to complicate things, because we changed the objectives to spirit, which I am totally supportive of, but we could use the idiomatic phrase in line with the letter and spirit of the convention, which would mean also the objectives and also the spirit of the convention in general. I would also like to explain why I have suggested all, because the norms and principles indicates to kind of specific norms, whereas all means every norm and principle of international law is more all-inclusive. Thank you.
Can we reflect the Armenian proposal, yes, on the screen? And in the meantime, can we have an explanation to the question raised by Hungary from the legal advisor, please? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So, to reply to the question raised by the distinguished delegate of Hungary, so first of all, the distinction between spirit and objectives of the convention is more a question of scope. Referring to the spirit of the convention, it's a broader scope with regard to what the convention is and stands for, so it not only includes objectives, but also all the context, whereas the word objectives is more a specific context, and as it sets forth specifically in the text of the convention, therefore it's to you, the sovereign body, to decide whether you wish to use the more broad term in this regard or the more specific term of the objectives of the convention. I think there was another question as well with regard to the last sentence. Yes. With regard to referring to the norms and principles of international law, this is also, of course, the decision of the committee if you wish to refer to this. With regard to the expression all, in my view, it could be difficult to define what is all with regards to the norms and principles of international law. So generally, in practice, we simply refer to the expression in accordance with the principles of international law, which would actually include as well the norms and etc. And it could be it can be interpreted as containing all the principles of international law and norms. I hope this clarifies things. Thank you.
Hungary, is it satisfactory for you?
I thank very much the legal advisor, Madam Chair, through you, for this clear explanation. For what she said last, I think the principles of international law would suffice, and then we could avoid further debate about what kind of norms. Principles, on the basis of what she said, principles includes the norms as well, so, and the principles of international law. As for the other question about objectives or spirit or letter and spirit, maybe we could say the provisions of the convention. The provisions of the convention are not in line with the provisions of the convention. And that actually implies all the clauses, all the provisions of the convention, its objectives and everything which is in there. If we go into spirit, there can be questions of interpretation. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Palestine, I see Palestine. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't have the intention to delay the debate on this paragraph. Actually, as it has been mentioned by the legal advisor, spirit is much more broader than the provisions or the objectives. It is a little bit more limited. Meanwhile, if this may address the concern of our colleague from Hungary, we can go along, but really we prefer to keep at least the spirit, if not the letter and spirit. Letter and spirit is much more broader, and it covers also the provisions in that case, while the provisions do not really. The spirit is something, as he mentioned correctly, it is intangible, and it is all the context around the convention itself. So if there is flexibility to keep it, we will go along. If not, in that case, we will agree on his amendment in order to adopt the paragraph as it stands. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. I see Armenia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I have another question for the legal advisor. Can we use the term from the Charter instead of the norms and principles? Much better to say purposes and principles, as it is in the UN Charter. It will be probably acceptable to everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Legal advisor, can you please respond?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairperson. Well, first, I wanted just to make a note as well with regard to the mentioning of the provisions, spirit, letter, and spirit. Probably another solution could be just simply to refer to the convention, in line with the convention. That would include everything. First, now to reply to the question raised by the distinguished delegate of Armenia, it is also a decision that can be taken by the committee if you wish to refer to the wording in the UN Charter, but this is your decision. Thank you very much.
Armenia is asking the floor. Yes, you have.
Yeah, I would like then just to make a formal motion to replace the norms with purposes and principles. Thank you.
Thank you. Can we please reflect it on the screen? It will take just one moment. The Secretary is working to reflect the amendments. I will give the floor to Philippines, but just to clear with Armenia that it was the purposes and principles of the United Nations, right? This was your proposal.
Of the UN Charter.
Of the UN Charter. Of the UN Charter, please. Okay. Now I give the floor to Philippines.
Thank you, Chair. Also, just to aid in moving forward, after hearing from the legal advisor, we would prefer then just convention first on that first part, and with regard to the end, I think also to have a general formulation here and say just principles of international law would be fine for us to keep it simple, so that are not in line with the convention and principles of international law would be a very simple formulation. However, again, if we do choose to cite the UN Charter, of course we have no problem being a member of the UN. But I think maybe a simple formulation of just principles of international law on the understanding that it does also include norms and other customary practices and customary international law within that, the principles. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. Are there any committee members wishing to react to the proposals? Palestine.
Could the Secretariat please reflect the proposal of our colleague from Philippines and clean the other things in order to read it clearly, because now it is a little bit difficult to follow. Thank you.
Okay, so you want us to delete the Armenian proposal on letter and the Hungarian proposal with regard to provision and just insert convention, in line with the convention. Okay. I see Cyprus, you have the floor.
Merci Madame la Présidente. C'était aussi pour appuyer ce que proposent les Philippines, qu'on nettoie les textes qui restent vraiment comme il l'a proposé, comme ça il sera plus clair et plus précis. Merci.
Okay, so I understand that after hearing the legal advisor, Armenia is requesting the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Thank you. I can go with the Philippines proposal of leaving the text as it is, but in that case, I will still insist on adding the word all, which will show the all-inclusivity, all norms and principles of international law. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. So I think for the first proposal, everyone is in agreement that we should keep in line with the convention. So there is a deal on that. With regard to the second one, we can agree if Armenian proposal to insert all is adopted by consensus by the committee members. Is there any objection to that? No objection? Okay, I don't see any objection. So can we consider then, with the as amended by Armenia, all norms and principles of international law? Philippines is asking the floor? No? No, okay. Okay, so the Secretariat will amend the text as in line with the Convention and all norms and principles of international law. So we're going to adapt the paragraph as amended by Armenia. Any objection to that? I see no objection. Can Secretariat please amend the paragraph? Yes. Okay, so no objection. We're adapting para 5 bis as amended by Armenia. Okay, can we scroll down, please? Okay, now we're going to consider paragraph 11. I think we have some new co-sponsors.
No, we have a new wording.
Oh, sorry, we have a new wording. Okay, can you then reflect it on the floor? Okay, I think we have the amended version of the paragraph on the screen. If you can have a look. Are there any reaction to this new paragraph 11? Senegal, I see Senegal asking for the floor. You have the floor, sir.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'est juste demander à ceux qui ont proposé le paragraphe de nous expliquer un peu, de manière un peu plus précise qu'est-ce qu'ils ont derrière un peu ce paragraphe, qu'est-ce qui le motive. Merci.
Thank you, Senegal. Can I ask one of the co-sponsors, Hungary, Turkey, Bulgaria, or Palestine, to take the floor to explain? I see Hungary.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak again to our own amendment, which we already did at the beginning of this sequence of paragraphs that started with 9. If I might recall, the objective of these paragraphs is to further facilitate cooperation in the preparation of nomination files in order to enhance multinational nominations, and in particular the paragraph 10 and 11 would help to avoid potential misunderstandings among communities concerning the ownership of ICH. This would help the work of the committee, we understand, if in paragraph 1 the shared nature of the element is clearly spelled out on the basis of information provided in the nomination file. And in fact, our amendment as of this afternoon, which came as an amendment to the amendment, the part based on information provided in the nomination file, this was our original intention, but after consultations with the several delegations, we agreed that this is better if it's spelled out in the text itself. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much for the explanation. I see Ethiopia. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wish to co-sponsor this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you. We are adding your name to the list of co-sponsors. Afghanistan, co-sponsor, okay. Armenia, co-sponsor, Cyprus, co-sponsor, and St. Lucia, co-sponsor. Okay, if you can add the names. Zambia as well? Oh, you're asking for the floor? Okay, Zambia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I don't know what will be the difference, or what difference will it make if we assume this is taken care of by Para 8, unless the Para 8 has changed significantly. But the way it was presented, I think it covers this, unless we just want to have a lot of words which are not necessary, really. Because what this one contains is contained in Para 8. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, maybe we can have a look at Para 8. Can we see Para 8? Any reaction to the proposal of Zambia from the co-sponsors? As far as I understood, Zambia has proposed to delete Para 11, the new proposal, because they believe that it has been already reflected in Para 8. Any reaction to that? Do I see Hungary? You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for the kind invitation indeed. And thank you for giving me the floor again. Our understanding is, and the rationale behind this paragraph, is that what is currently paragraph 8, I think, gives the paragraph 8, 9, and 10, 8 and 9, gives kind of the principles which then put into operative paragraphs in 10 and 11. If I can have that on the screen. So, yes. So basically, if we want our principles to be followed up that are proposed in 8 and 9, then our understanding is that 10 and 11 helps to put them into practice. This is why this comes all together. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much, Hungary. I think our secretary would like to explain the rationale, and I'll give the floor to him, Mr. Curtis.
Thank you. If we can go back to paragraph 8 very quickly, we will see that paragraph 8 reminds state parties, whereas paragraph 11, if we can go down, is addressed to the evaluation body. The two paragraphs are addressed to different entities. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think Zambia is satisfied with the explanations. So if there's no objection, can we proceed and adopt paragraph 11? I think I see no objection. Then para 11 is adopted. Para 12. No objection. If there's no objection, para 12 is adopted. Para 13. We have minor amendments from Zambia. Maybe they would like to introduce. Zambia, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can't even remember what the sentences was before I changed, but we wanted it to read smartly. That's why we added that. I don't know if anyone has a problem with that. So that it flows. Thank you.
Thank you. Our secretary would like to explain. Mr. Curtis?
No, I would just like to thank Zambia for improving our English language in their proposal. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Zambia. Thank you very much, Mr. Curtis. So if there's no objection, can we adopt para 13? I see no objection. Para 13 is adopted. Para 14. If there's no objection, can we adopt para 14? I see no objection. Para 14 is adopted. Para 15. Is there any objection to para 15? None. Para 15 is adopted. So we have a new paragraph proposed by Philippines, Palestine, and Mongolia in para 16. Can one of the co-sponsors please kindly introduce Philippines? I see Philippines. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. If you recall, earlier in this item, we talked about one file, and then there was a reference to the inscription of an associated site on their tentative list under the World Heritage Convention, and it was agreed that we would move such reference of synergies between cultural conventions, in particular the 1972 convention, to this general resolution. So in consultation with some committee members, we've proposed this language. And I maybe just for a little bit more explanation, for instance, here in Jeju, there's a World Heritage Site, but there's also inscribed elements on the ICH's representative list here. So this is the kind of perhaps, synergies or exploring how these connections can be further, be beneficial for states, parties, and communities. This is the kind of approach that we're asking for. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. I see Algeria asking for the floor. You have the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Nous souhaiterions nous joindre à ce paragraphe, mais nous avions un amendement mineur à rajouter au texte avec la permission des co-sponsors. Effectivement, c'est extrêmement très important de parler de synergie, mais il ne faut pas exclure aussi les programmes. Donc je pense nommément au programme MAB qui aussi peut avoir de la synergie avec la Convention de 2003. Et tel que le texte est libellé, cela exclut le programme MAB. C'est pour ça que nous souhaiterions vers la fin rajouter ainsi que les autres conventions et programmes. Parce que le MAB étant un programme et non une convention. Donc la convention et programme. Et biffé culturel. Comme ça, on est couvert. Toute convention ou programme de l'UNESCO. Voilà. Biffé culturel. Non, biffé, le mot culturel. Voilà. Programme de l'UNESCO. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. I see Hungary asking for the floor. You have the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. We would like to strongly support this amendment brought forward by the Philippines, and actually the example cited by the Philippines very much supports also the amendment brought forward by Algeria. Jeju Island is also a biosphere reserve, and that is a UNESCO program. So our understanding is that indeed the synergies should be extended to to UNESCO conventions and programs. We understand that the World Heritage Convention comes first. This is always the first association that people bring when they talk about this convention. We can live with that it stays like that, but we would like to remind that the World Heritage Convention is not the only one that is relevant. But maybe this is a question to the Secretariat, whether the formulation as well as other UNESCO conventions, and we also agree with deleting the word cultural, but whether using conventions, all the conventions, is something feasible to do. So maybe the word relevant conventions and programs, relevant could be inserted, but I would like to listen to Mr. Secretary on this point first before making up our minds. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. Let's hear the Secretariat on this question. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I think this paragraph comes in within other broader discussions that are happening within UNESCO. On a very specific thing, I'm pleased to inform you concerning 1972 and 2003, we've already set up cross-referencing on our website so that any site in the 72 convention that is linked with an element in the 2003, they click up. That's just a little technical thing. But I think you will know, those of you in the room who are involved in the discussions on programming and the C5, that the culture sector has two cross-cutting main lines of actions which are precisely intended to cover the synergies and collaboration across all the culture conventions, at least. I'll give the floor to the director of our division to speak. Before, I'll just say, concerning other sectors, we don't mind, in the sense, the spirit of that, as long as you understand the practical implications of how long these things are. But I don't think the language here is that, request that we do this by then. This is just encouraging that direction, so it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wanted to just clarify, perhaps, that at the level of the culture sector, what we are doing is, if you look at the 39C5, the plan for the next biennium, we have two cross-cutting expected results that are cross-cutting across all the 6 culture conventions. One is on conflict and emergencies, and the other is on the SDGs, and these and the 2030 agenda. Now, these cross-cutting results are expected results are doing precisely what is suggested here, which is looking at the synergies, because they're going across all the conventions and seeing where these conventions are where the implementation of these activities connect with the conventions. Now, this is, if you look at the 1972 convention, they are already, the natural heritage is already in synergy with the MAB convention, or the MAB program. So all of these are linked through the ones that are operating together, because there's the biodiversity conventions that are already working together. So even at the level of beyond UNESCO, there are the biodiversity conventions, and the 1972 convention where natural heritage is concerned are working with the biodiversity convention. So there are linkages at different levels. And we are looking at these linkages and these synergies in these specific cross-cutting areas. So I just wanted to clarify that. So whether we need to do that within the scope of the work of this convention is what you have to decide.
Thank you very much. I have a list of speakers: Ethiopia, Korea, Palestine, Turkey, Afghanistan, Cyprus, Senegal, Côte d'Ivoire. Let's proceed. Ethiopia first. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the floor. I just want to reflect very brief. The other day, I had concerns when we were implying, with some implying paragraph, and I'm very thankful and happy for those countries who have drafted this paragraph. I'm very comfortable with the spirit of this paragraph, but one minor question I have, because the paragraph winds on all UNESCO conventions and programs, why do we have to cap the 1972 convention? I'm thinking that it's a subset of the UNESCO conventions. So if we say UNESCO conventions later on, if we have specific reasoning to put the 1972 convention bold, I can live with that. But can't we assume it's a subset of the UNESCO conventions? If that is so, we can a little bit qualify this paragraph. Otherwise, I am in agreement of this paragraph as amended by Algeria, specifically because it helps us understand and frame all programs which potentially can help to our cause. So with this, I would like to be a co-sponsor to this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You want a co-sponsor as it is, or as amended?
As amended, thank you, by Algeria.
Okay, thank you. I give the floor to Republic of Korea.
감사합니다, 의장님. 무형문화유산의 보유자분들이 가지고 있는 진정성과 기술이 세계유산의 보존에 상당히 진정성 있게 사용된 경우가 많습니다. 그래서 이 패라를 저희도 동의를 합니다. 이상입니다.
Thank you, Korea. I give the floor to Palestine now.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will try to be very brief, and thank you for giving me the floor again. Actually, I would like to start by thanking our colleague from Algeria. It is absolutely a relevant amendment that, of course, we support. And there is another amendment that has been mentioned by Hungary, but it is not reflected on the screen, as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs. Relevant, I think, is absolutely acceptable, and it make it more clear. Now, as for the question of our colleague from Ethiopia, I'll leave the answer to our colleague from Philippines because we discussed this ahead when we were drafting the question. And final amendment, having listened to Madam Director, I think it's better for us to say, let me see, now I can't read anymore. Instead of saying encourages efforts, we should insert the word further. Encourages further efforts, because already the efforts are there. It has been done. So just if we can put this. Okay, thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Palestine. I give the floor to Turkey, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As Secretariat has already explained, the synergies process have already established in the Secretariat, and they have been working on that. And apart from that, this issue have been discussed within the context of ad hoc working group on governance, which called for further synergies as well. So that is very much in line with the work of the ad hoc working group, and we will go into details of this issue in agenda item later in one of the agenda items. I forgot, it was 18, I don't remember right now. So this is highly relevant, but we will prefer to go along with the Hungarian suggestion with the fact that we can't recall all programs, because I think the emphasis in here goes for the geoparks and MAP, because there is the MOST program, there is the IHP program. For sure, coherence within all UNESCO is needed. But I think what we are trying to do is something different. So it is in terms of the protection sites. So I think we shouldn't really cover all programs of UNESCO. So along with these lines, we will be supportive of this paragraph in line with the amendment proposals of Hungary. Thank you.
Thank you. Afghanistan, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Actually, I wanted to support this amendment and also remind the word relevant, which is now here. Thank you.
Thank you. Cyprus, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Moi aussi, maintenant, je suis d'accord avec les amendements qui ont eu lieu. Si vous rajoutez les relevantes aussi dans les textes français. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Senegal, please.
Je me joins à cela, mais il faut comprendre que la Convention 72, pas qu'elle est plus renommée, pas qu'elle est plus prestigieuse, mais c'est dans la mise en œuvre de cette convention qu'on s'est rendu compte qu'il y a beaucoup de choses qui ne relèvent pas de cette convention. Je ne dis pas que elle a la paternité sur les autres, mais avec la 2003, on s'est rendu compte que le lien entre l'immatériel et le matériel sont tellement forts sur certains sites classés que quelquefois, les synergies sont plus... Pas que les synergies sont plus faciles avec la 72, parce que la 2005 est là, mais quand même, il y a des réalités. Mais je suis tout à fait d'accord avec la Belgique, avec la Hongrie, de dire relevant. Mais relevant par rapport à quoi? Relevant par rapport à la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Je pense que si on peut ajouter une petite phrase comme ça, pertinent par rapport à, bien sûr, l'atteinte des objectifs, ou bien, je ne sais pas, parce que la pertinence, c'est par rapport à la mise en œuvre de notre convention. Juste une petite phrase, peut-être en ajoutant cela. Merci.
Thank you. Now, Côte d'Ivoire, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je suis un peu perdue avec tous ces... C'était juste pour dire que je soutenais toutes les propositions, les amendements faits. Et j'avais un peu la même préoccupation que l'Éthiopie. Pourquoi citer spécifiquement la 72 et ne pas dire la synergie entre la Convention de 2003 et les autres conventions et programmes de l'UNESCO? Merci.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. I see Zambia now. You have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, Chairperson rather. I would want to support that, and we have no problem with the 1972 convention, except would say as well as other relevant international conventions, because at one stage we spoke about international laws, respect for international laws. So are we going to say we are going to restrict ourselves only to UNESCO conventions? What about other relevant UN conventions? If they, in one way or another, affect our work, won't we try to put our activities in sync with those? Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair.
Thank you. I see Philippines and Cuba. Philippines, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. Just to thank all committee members for the interest that this has generated, and we welcome relevant. And just to answer to some questions of the distinguished delegates from Ethiopia and Côte d'Ivoire, the reason why 1972 is mentioned there explicitly is because that was how it was raised in the context of our discussions here in this session. It was under a specific file, and in that file, it was noted that an associated site was inscribed on the state's party's tentative list. That's what I think Zambia noted that there's much, or Senegal noted that the links between 2003 and 1972 are quite more tangible then, and that's why it's mentioned there, and we would prefer that it be mentioned explicitly, I think. And maybe with regard to the last suggestion from Zambia, just again to move forward, I'm not sure if it might be too broad then, because we're broadening the scope so much. We're flexible though, but maybe we would prefer to just keep it UNESCO conventions and programs for the time being, relevant UNESCO conventions and programs for the time being. Thank you.
I see Palestine also agreeing to that. Cuba, please, you have the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je pense que ce n'est pas notre mandat ouvert ces paragraphes concernant le reste des conventions, que peut-être il y a des États membres qui sont partis de ces conventions, que non le sont des autres instruments internationaux. Je pense que nous sommes prêts pour adopter sa proposition. On regarde que la liaison entre ces deux conventions, peut-être c'est la liste. Il n'y a pas d'autre instrument à l'UNESCO qu'il y ait une liste indicative, qu'il y ait une liste représentative comme la Convention de patrimoine mondial et la Convention de patrimoine immatériel, parce que c'est vrai que la diversité culturelle, c'est une convention qu'il y a beaucoup de liaisons avec ces conventions, mais il n'y a pas de liste. Et peut-être il y a quelque chose qui sont très similaires dans ces deux conventions, mais je pense que la proposition de l'intégrer, de faire la référence à le reste des conventions et programmes de l'UNESCO, et ça couvre la préoccupation des autres États membres, mais nous nous sommes d'accord de mettre des autres conventions internationales et tout comme ça dans ces paragraphes, et pour nous, on peut les adopter comme reste sur l'écran. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Any other requests for the floor? Austria, sorry, I couldn't see you. Austria, you have the floor.
No problem, thank you. We would actually support to keep UNESCO conventions and add recommendations as well to like conventions, recommendations, and programs.
I see Hungary.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Although our neighbor is very far today from us, she speaks from our mind. Indeed, it was our intention to propose to include recommendations. For example, the General Conference adopted in 2015 the recommendation on the protection and promotion of museums and collections. if I recall well, on 2011 on the historic urban landscapes, specifically mentioning intangible cultural heritage. These are all contexts in which ICH is relevant. Citing UNESCO programs, traditional water management techniques, such as the ones we inscribed today from Peru, may also be relevant in the IHP program. So for us, UNESCO conventions, recommendations, and programs would be a good formulation. Indeed, I flagged the question to include relevant before asking the Secretary to respond. And if there is a consensus in the room about relevant, we are happy to go along. We don't insist on that point. But UNESCO conventions, recommendations, and programs would certainly cover the spectrum that is reasonable to expect. Of course, we would not be against going beyond normative instruments adopted outside the context of UNESCO, but probably that would be something at this stage that would be too much to ask. At this stage, I think we could satisfy if at least with other programs, conventions, and recommendations of UNESCO, there is synergy, and then we can take a step further later on. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. I see Palestine.
Thank you, Madam Chair, but I think we are complicating our business. First of all, I think that we heard some delegations raising concerns about the Zambian amendment. I agree with them that international, maybe the Secretariat or Madam Director can help us. When we say international, we are going too far and it becomes too, I think, so it's better to take it off. Second, relevant, we've been supporting, and it's me who asked to put the Hungarian amendment because it is absolutely appropriate. But now I have some concern about the recommendations. I think if we keep it as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs, it will be clear enough first, and it will be relevant to our purpose. We know that for the conventions and the programs, there are secretariat, there are a structure. Recommendations, there are no secretariat and there are no structure to manage them. So I think it is not at all appropriate to keep the recommendations. Thank you. So I suggest the deletion of recommendations. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you very much. I don't see any other requests. Oh, Turkey, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In fact, synergies issue is a very sensitive issue. You should have decisions for that. And what kind of synergies we're talking about? And in here, there's a process launched in UNESCO. So I think our starting point is that synergies. And we can't expand the synergies process to all other international conventions and so on. And since we are in the UNESCO house, we have to limit ourselves with the relevant UNESCO conventions in the first place. Secondly, regarding the Austria's recommendations, we have some difficulty in understanding it. What do we mean by that? Because in here, we're talking about the conventions and the programs, which have statutory processes, but recommendations is something different to our understanding. But if legal advisor could give some feedback on that, what will be the implications of putting it there as such? Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. I see Cyprus asking for the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. C'était pour dire la même chose, qu'il faut effacer recommandations parce qu'on parle des, entre conventions et non pas avec les recommandations, et de rester aussi aux conventions de l'UNESCO et non pas internationales. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Colombia, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We believe this discussion is becoming very complex, and actually the purpose of that is just to remark that we should have some synergies with the 1972 convention and other conventions that could be relevant or connected to our convention. I think it's becoming too complex, and the spirit is so simple that we don't need to go so far for that. Secondly, this is debated not only here, but in other conventions, other areas of UNESCO, so I think we should keep simple and not become if it's relevant or connected or too much or program, or we cannot list everything that UNESCO has here related to culture. Indeed, ICH is always related to everything with culture, education, gender, armed conflicts, and everything in life. So we cannot list it here. We should just keep it synergies with this convention, with UNESCO conventions, and that's all. Then if we find one is relevant at the moment, I'm sure we will have the debate if this one is relevant or not, or connected, or blah, blah, blah. So let's give an opportunity to the future and just keep it simple. We are making it such a big, complex discussion for something so simple. And we all agree on the spirit of this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Colombia. I see St. Lucia.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I cannot quite see how I can have synergies with a recommendation. I can have synergy with a structured program and a convention, but to have it with a recommendation, it's a little thing. So I vote for the removal of recommendations.
Thank you, St. Lucia. I see Algeria.
Oui, Madame la Présidente, c'est juste pour essayer d'avancer un peu. Effectivement, ça se complique un peu, mais moi je trouve que ça a encore du sens. Et nous devrions rester sur les conventions et programmes pour une simple raison. C'est que les conventions et programmes ont un secrétariat, pas les recommandations. Donc les secrétariats peuvent se parler entre eux et entamer ce qu'on appelle une synergie. Avec les recommandations, c'est un peu plus délicat. Donc c'est pour ça qu'on souhaiterait rester sur recommandations et sur conventions et programmes. Maintenant, pertinentes ou pas pertinentes, il est clair que nous n'allons pas travailler avec une convention ou un programme qui n'est pas pertinent. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you. I'll give the floor to Côte d'Ivoire, and then maybe we can wrap up this discussion. Côte d'Ivoire, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. J'aborde dans le même sens que les autres pays par rapport aux mots recommandations. Nous pensons que la Convention, les programmes n'ont pas la même force juridique que les recommandations. Et il faut vraiment que notre collègue de l'Autriche accepte peut-être de supprimer le mot recommandation. Merci.
Thank you, Côte d'Ivoire. So I think if we can have something along these lines, as well as other relevant UNESCO conventions and programs, we will be agreeing to this paragraph. So in that regard, I appeal to Austria and Hungary to withdraw their amendment proposals.
From our side, we agree to move forward.
Okay, I think we have a consensus now in the room. So if there's no objection, let's proceed to the adoption of this paragraph as amended. No objection, I see none. Adopted. Okay, let's proceed to the paragraph 17. Are there any objections? None. Adopted. 18. Any objection to para 18? I see none. Adopted. So I think we have adopted all the relevant paras. Now we're going to proceed to adopt the draft decision in its entirety. If there is no objection, can we adopt the decision in its entirety as amended? I see no objection. It's adopted. Okay. The chair of the evaluation body wants to take the floor to say a few words before we conclude this agenda item 11. Mr. Skunti, you have the floor.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente, de me donner la parole.
puisque c'est ma dernière année au sein de l'organe d'évaluation, je voulais adresser quelques remerciements avant de quitter le podium. Je voudrais d'abord remercier les membres du comité qui m'ont élu pour un mandat de 3 ans, de 2015 à 2017. J'espère avoir été à la hauteur de cette confiance. Je voudrais remercier mes collègues de l'organe d'évaluation de m'avoir élu président en 2015 et en 2017. À la tête de cet organe, j'espère également que j'ai été à la hauteur de la confiance qu'ils ont placée en moi. Je voudrais remercier le secrétariat pour leur soutien indéfectible, pour leur professionnalisme. Je pense que nous sommes devenus un peu plus que des collègues maintenant. En tout cas, c'est mon sentiment. Je les remercie toutes et tous. Je remercie les États parties pour leur indulgence lorsque les recommandations que nous avons faites à l'adresse du comité n'ont pas été celles auxquelles ils s'attendaient peut-être. Je remercie toutes les autres parties prenantes, mes collègues les chercheurs, les membres des ONG. Je suis ravi d'avoir servi la Convention au cours de ces dernières années, notamment au sein de l'organe. Et je voudrais souhaiter plein succès à mes collègues de l'organe, ceux qui y siègent maintenant, ceux qui seront élus, et je souhaite plein succès au comité, et j'espère que la Convention ira de l'avant pour sauvegarder le patrimoine culturel immatériel qui nous est cher et qui nous réunit toutes et tous ici. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you very much, Mr. Skunti. On behalf of all committee members, we thank you for all your efforts and we wish you all the best and success in your future endeavors. Well, unfortunately, my term has ended with this agenda item. It's been a pleasure working with all of you. Thank you for your cooperation. And I understand the Ambassador Lee has asked the Vice Chair Colombia to assume this duty. So I'm just going to leave our Vice Chair from Colombia.
Good afternoon. Okay, to move on the agenda, the Secretariat has a proposal for us to change the order of the agenda. They propose to first talk about the item 14, about the reflection on the removal of an element from a list to another. Then we will discuss the item 13, about the report of the informal ad hoc working group. And afterwards, we will discuss the item 12, regarding the procedures to facilitate dialogue between evaluation body and submitting states. But before we take the decision, I will give the floor to the Secretariat so they can explain why this change.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Dear committee members, the reasoning for the proposed change to invert items 13 on the informal ad hoc working group and item 14 being the reflections on the transfer of an element. Firstly, of course, we've just been discussing this issue of transfers of an element, but more importantly, in terms of time management, we have received a draft amendment on item 13, which would require being adopted only once after item 14 would have been agreed. In order to avoid suspending an item going back to another item and coming back, we propose to start with item 14 so that when we come to item 13, that amendment can be already examined and save us some time. Thank you.
Do we have any comments, or do we all agree to change the order of the agenda? I see none comments, so let's start with the item number 14, reflection on the transfer of an element from one list to other and the removal of an element from a list. Mr. Secretary, the floor is yours to present the item to us.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I'd just like from the outset to recall that this reflection on the transfer of an element from one list to the other and the removal of an element from a list originates from the debates of the committee at its 10th session in 2015. During that session, the committee decided to treat on an exceptional basis the request submitted by Vietnam to transfer the element from the element we examined this morning from the urgent safeguarding list to the representative list. And at the same time, the committee also decided to begin a reflection to establish clear procedures for the removal of an element from a list and the transfer from one list to the other, and to revise the operational directives. And I refer to Decision 10-19. Before presenting to the committee the different aspects and issues that may need to be considered and that are connected to the mechanisms of removal and transfer, I would like to first recall the current text of the operational directives, the starting point for our reflection. 3 paragraphs currently address the removal of the transfer of an element. The current operational directives under subchapter 111, paragraph 38 on transfer, establishes that an element may not simultaneously be inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list and the representative list, that a state party may request that an element be transferred from one list to the other, and such a request must demonstrate that the element satisfies all of the criteria for the list to which the transfer is requested. Finally, it foresees that this request be submitted according to the established procedures and deadlines for nominations. Paragraph 39 concerns the removal from the urgent safeguarding list by the committee when it determines, after assessment of the implementation of the safeguarding plan, that the element no longer satisfies one or more criteria for inscription on that list. Paragraph 40 concerns the removal from the representative list by the committee when it determines that it no longer satisfies one or more criteria for inscription on that list. In their current state, the operational directives are somewhat ambiguous concerning the relationship between the transfer and removal of an element, and could indeed be interpreted in 2 different ways, each of which has different implications. Either a removal is required before a transfer can take place, so that removal and transfer are then considered as an interlinked procedure, or a transfer has its own separate procedure, whereby removal and transfer are then considered as 2 separate procedures. So what do I mean by interlinked or separate procedures? In the first case, in the interlinked procedure, concerning the first case, the interlinked procedure, in its decision 10-19, the committee decided, pending the adoption of the relevant procedures by the General Assembly, that it would examine both the report on the status of the element, Xuan Xinging of Puto Province in Vietnam, and the new nomination for the same element to the representative list concurrently. The committee considered that this transfer could not happen without the prior removal of the element from the other list. This corresponds to a literal application of the operational directives, with the removal and transfer considered as an interlinked procedure. For the transfer of elements from the urgent safeguarding list to the representative list, or for example, the register of good safeguarding practices, considering the transfer and removal as an interlinked procedure could be deemed more adequate it might indeed be more logical to first evaluate whether the element is still in need of urgent safeguarding and hence examine its possible removal from the urgent safeguarding list before then considering its transfer to any other mechanism. Whereas in the case of separate procedures, notwithstanding the procedure that was applied in the case of the request submitted by Vietnam, the operational directives could be interpreted in a different way, with the two processes of transfer and removal being considered as separate. Following this approach, a transfer could take place after the committee has examined a nomination of an element that is already listed. If that nomination is considered as satisfying all of the criteria of the now other list, the committee could decide to transfer the element for the original to the other list without the need for prior removal of the element from the original list. The transfer would implicitly include the removal of the element from the original list. In this scenario, the element would be transferred to a new list irrespective of its status in relation to the criteria of the original list. In the same vein, paragraphs 39, removal from the urgent safeguarding list, and 40, removal from the representative list, would then also be standalone procedures. So, for the transfer of elements from the representative list to the urgent safeguarding list in the other direction, so to speak, as that which we examined today, it would indeed seem logical to consider the transfer of an element, the transfer and removal as two separate processes, so that the transfer of an element from the representative list to the urgent safeguarding list may not necessarily require the evaluation of the conformity of the file with the criteria of the representative list, but rather the assessment of the file against the criteria of the urgent safeguarding list. Another consideration should be made as to how the transfer and removal procedure may be initiated, as the current operational directives present asymmetrical situations. According to paragraph 38, it is a state party that may request that an element be transferred from one list to the other. In the case of a removal, it is the committee that decides, while paragraphs 39 and 40 are silent about the role of the state party or state parties concerned. So to sum up, some of the lessons learned from the evaluation of the request submitted by Vietnam, and based on the procedure identified by the committee in its decision 10-19, the first experience by the evaluation body evaluating a transfer request has led to a number of observations and considerations that could feed the debate of the committee on this issue. A criterion by criterion evaluation of the status of the element inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list against the criteria for inscription on the urgent safeguarding list was deemed inadequate. More specifically, the 5 criteria were not necessarily considered suitable, as they have been formulated to examine the possible inscription of an element and are therefore not adequately formulated for the purposes of examining of whether an element could be removed from the list. This first experience shows that a new set of criteria would need to be devised for the specific purpose of examining a request for the removal of an element from the urgent safeguarding list. The core of the evaluation should focus firstly on the assessment of the implementation of the safeguarding plan, including in the initial nomination file. Secondly, on the consent of the communities for the removal of the element from the urgent safeguarding list. Thirdly, on a confirmation that the nature of the element has not been distorted due to the implementation of the safeguarding plan. Fourthly, a proof that the inventory in which the element is included has been updated or is planned to be updated to reflect the evolving status of the element. The sequence in which the criteria were considered was also deemed inadequate. The evaluation body therefore suggested that in the future it should firstly evaluate the implementation of the safeguarding plan and ensure that the nature of the element has not been distorted. Secondly, then ensure that the communities who had consented to the inscription of the element concerned on the urgent safeguarding list also consent to its removal. And thirdly, finally evaluate whether the threats identified still jeopardize the viability of the element, so as to ascertain whether the element is still in need of urgent safeguarding. In this first experience of evaluating a transfer request, the evaluation of the status of an element inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list was based on the quadrennial report of the status of the element, prepared and submitted by the state party. However, this tool was considered by the EV as inadequate, as a quadrennial report on the status of the element does not provide sufficient information to assess whether an element is still in need of urgent safeguarding. Based on this observation, a new form would indeed be needed to allow submitting states to demonstrate the effectiveness of the implementation of the safeguarding plan described in the nomination file submitted at the time of inscription. This new form would also require submitting states to provide evidence of the consent of the same community that supported the initial inscription of the element to have the element removed from the urgent safeguarding list, as well as a new assessment of the status of the element after the implementation of the safeguarding plan, including an evaluation of the threats to its viability identified at the time of inscription. And if we take these considerations in a larger tech context and beyond these procedural and technical aspects, I believe that the issue of removal and transfer raises some broader questions that the committee may wish to consider. Firstly, the transfer request indeed raises the need for a deeper reflection about the nature of the listing system and the purposes of the lists of the Convention. It would seem pertinent for the committee to consider the broad context of the 2003 Convention and the full range of its mechanisms in order to address both transfer and removal in a way that is consistent and in line with its intent and purpose. Under the 2003 Convention, the representative list and the urgent safeguarding list each have distinct and specific objectives, as set out under Articles 16 and 17 of the Convention. The premature transfer or removal of an element might jeopardize the very purpose of the urgent safeguarding list and reinforce the already prominent tendency by state parties to favor the representative list. In this regard, the committee might want to reflect on the prominence of the representative list and whether it fulfills its intended purpose to raise awareness about intangible cultural heritage in general. While the experience of the 2017 cycle gave some insights about the difficulties experienced in examining a request or a request for transfer within the framework of the current operational directives, the committee might also want to consider the possibility, for example, of the transfer of an element from the representative list to the urgent safeguarding list in the other direction. In this regard, the committee may wish to reflect on the appropriateness of the criteria of the representative list should it ever receive such a transfer request. And it may consider whether such a transfer would follow the same procedures as a transfer from the urgent safeguarding list to the representative list. And discussions about the transfer of the elements from one list to another raise also concerns regarding whether we are looking at turning the listing mechanisms of the 2003 Convention into a sister model of the listing system established in the 1972 World Heritage Convention. If a transfer to the representative list constitutes an indicator of achievement for elements previously inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list, this could potentially lead to a change in the dynamic of the lists, of both lists. The trend should be carefully considered in light of the different purposes of the two conventions and their respective lists. A second consideration that the committee might also wish to keep in mind is the possibility of making better use of the Register of Good Safeguarding Practices, as in Article 18 of the Convention. In case of a successful safeguarding efforts that have led to a situation wherein an element considered in need of urgent safeguarding is no longer deemed to be so, the removal of this element from the urgent safeguarding list followed by the selection of its successful safeguarding process for the Register of Good Safeguarding Practices, could also be considered as a logical outcome. A third consideration is the link between the urgent safeguarding list and the international assistance mechanism. The evaluation of the transfer submitted by Vietnam highlighted the importance of the effective implementation of the safeguarding list plan for elements inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list. This consideration could lead to reinforcing the existing combined mechanism, allowing state parties to nominate elements to the urgent safeguarding list and simultaneously request international assistance to support the implementation of the proposed safeguarding plan. Fourthly, and I apologize it's long, but the issues are complex. I'll just read them once. Fourthly, periodic reporting seems to play an important role in the procedure relating to the removal of an element from the USL. However, the evaluation of the transfer request we just did, or you just did, has shown that the periodic report in its current form is not an adequate tool for the purpose of examining a removal request. This issue could be considered in light of the recommendation from the evaluation body to create a new form dedicated to the transfer and removal procedures. In addition, paragraph 39 of the operational directives on the prior assessment of the implementation of the safeguarding plan might also be taken into account in a different way. For the removal, it could either be a monitoring mission, a separate reporting exercise, or some kind of specific assessment. For the removal of the elements inscribed on the representative list, paragraph 40 of the operational directives does not prescribe how the committee should proceed. The question concerns how the committee would determine that an element no longer satisfies one or more criteria for inscription on the representative list. The periodic reports may be a source of information in this regard. However, the reports on elements inscribed on the representative list are included in the national periodic reports on the implementation of the convention at the national level, as you know, following a 6-year periodicity, and therefore they're probably unlikely to be fully available or fully updated at the time of request for a removal or a transfer. And finally, community consent, as you discussed today, could be considered a key consideration in the evaluation of requests for the transfer of an element from one mechanism to the other, as communities seem to be are in the best position to evaluate the status of the elements. However, uncertainty remains as to how communities can participate in this process beyond the provision of consent letters. Possibilities for the active and more direct involvement of communities in the process could be further explored. So some proposed way forwards reflected in this paper is that the examination of the transfer request submitted by Vietnam, as we know, has highlighted a number of procedural and technical issues, but raises more fundamental issues linked to the core of the convention that may instigate an in-depth reflection on the future of the listing system. While the creation of clear and more established procedures, new criteria and forms, and the revision of the operational directives could indeed allow for the transfer of the elements, and hence solve the issue of transfer requests in the short term, the committee may wish to keep in mind that the transfer of elements from one list to the other is more than a technical issue, and that it could have far-ranging ramifications for the convention and the core purposes of its mechanisms. In light of this, it might be premature for the committee to examine other potential removal and transfer requests before clear procedures and methodologies have been established and included in the operational directives, and before operational tools for the implementation of these procedures have been created. The open-ended intergovernmental working group, which the committee initially wished to be held before the present session in order to discuss draft operational directives on the transfer and removal procedures, could not be convened, as no voluntary supplementary contribution to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund has yet been received for this purpose. Within this context, the draft decision 12-14 proposes to convene an open-ended intergovernmental working group pending on reception of voluntary supplementary contribution to the Intangible Cultural Heritage Fund and it is proposed that it may wish to reflect on the procedures for the removal of an element from a list and the transfer from one list to the other, on larger fundamental issues for the future of the 2003 Convention, such as the nature and purposes of the lists and the register, and on the relevance of the various criteria for each of these mechanisms. Thank you, Madam Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Cortis. Okay, now let's open the floor. Does anybody wants to take the floor? Turkey, please. Take the floor.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. First of all, let me thank Vietnam, as its application has given us the opportunity to discuss the possibilities of removal from one list, to draw lessons, and to question how to address this issue in the future. As a matter of fact, it would have been very useful if we could be able to organize the working group before the 12th session of the committee to properly reflect on the matter. We would like to underline that we consider Vietnamese case exceptional, and it should not set precedents for any such cases in the future until we define the framework. We strongly believe that states parties should refrain from submitting such files until clear procedures are developed and operational directives are revised accordingly. We fully agree with the recommendation of the evaluation body that we should not rush into it before setting clear and specific rules. In fact, the convention is quite new, and we should avoid in comparing this convention with that of 1972 in terms of removals and transfers from one list to another. Firstly, we must be able to answer the fundamental questions linked to the intent and purpose of the convention and listing mechanisms. This issue is needed to be discussed thoroughly at the technical level by experts firstly, and sufficient time should also be given for its consideration at the intergovernmental level before it comes in front of the committee. But before concluding my remarks, we would like to hear from the evaluation body regarding the challenges that they faced during the examination of the Vietnamese file. I would also like to inform the committee members that we will have some amendment proposals under this agenda item. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Turkey. Now we give the floor to Philippines.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We view this item as relevant for the future directions of the convention and its mechanisms. In the bigger picture, we believe listing is only a small part of the ICH story. Listing is not an end, but only a means for greater safeguarding and transmission of elements. Looked at from this perspective, the representative and urgent safeguarding lists are living and dynamic entities. Reporting and monitoring of elements hence becomes key. When considering such transfers in the future, perhaps we will need a paradigm shift in how we conduct our work and decide on the status of elements. Would we, out of the necessity of circumstance, have to move out from a methodology that only examines the contents of dossiers to one that goes in situ to observe the elements and communities themselves? Also, a hypothetical question, what if in case of a multinational file, the element in one or more submitting states parties requires a possible transfer from one list to the other, but not in the other states parties that have submitted the original dossier? We may then have to look at paragraph 38 of the operational directives and whether in fact the same element can indeed be on two separate lists at the same time. Hence, we made our statement under item 11 saying that we still need a clear definition of what an element and its scope actually is, and this situation we're in does bear light on that. These are, of course, far-reaching questions that have serious implications on our convention's future. We support points regarding the register of good practices. And again, this dynamic should be multi-directional, but our convention and its operational directives, as Mr. Curtis said in his presentation, for the time being, do not accommodate for this multi-directional dynamic. We think the further work on this should be as open as possible and shouldn't be contained to maybe an experts working group, but should be a more inclusive and constant conversation involving as many states parties as possible. We think eventually when more procedures are outlined and ironed out, this could in fact hold the grains of a new and more compelling vision for this convention and can actually help position the system into dealing with the complex challenges we are taking up, for instance, under the items on ICH in emergencies and ICH in sustainable development. We will need to take up this work, and we commend the work that has already been done, but we see that there's quite still a lot of road ahead, but we stand ready to also help in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. Now we give the floor to Senegal, after Cuba and Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais juste relever deux petits points que j'avais déjà évoqués d'ailleurs dans le cas du Vietnam, que ça, c'est une exception. L'étude concomitante, d'une part, du retrait et de l'insertion sur une autre liste, c'est un cas d'exception. Et on n'a pas de règles, on n'a pas de procédure précise. Travaillons à cela. Un groupe de travail était prévu, il n'y a pas eu de budget. Continuons à chercher une voie dans ce sens. Et effectivement, comme le disait le secrétariat, ne pas nous précipiter. Et en cela, bien sûr, les Philippines viennent de le préciser davantage. Il n'y a pas à se précipiter. La question de la Convention, c'est la sauvegarde du patrimoine culturel immatériel. Ça, c'est important. Et si c'est important, ce n'est pas vraiment juste inscrire. Et deuxième question, c'est surtout par rapport à la 72, à la Convention 72. C'est vrai que nous aimons les synergies. C'est bien d'avoir les synergies, c'est bien d'avoir des stratégies plus ou moins uniformisées. Mais sur cette question précise, il faut faire beaucoup attention. Parce que ce qui se passe au niveau de la Convention 72, c'est avec des critères, c'est avec des procédures très précises qui font qu'un site est placé en péril ou classé. Ce n'est pas du tout la même chose avec la Convention 2003. Alors, dans la Convention 2003, nous voulons sauvegarder un patrimoine. Et de ce point de vue, il faut vraiment réfléchir et beaucoup approfondir la réflexion sur le transfert et sur, si vous voulez, le retrait et le transfert. Et je pense que seul un groupe de travail nous permet d'arriver à des résultats probants et ne pas se précipiter. Pour aujourd'hui, c'est juste évoquer ces procédures, évoquer ces perspectives, si vous voulez, d'approfondissement de la réflexion. C'est en cela que je voulais intervenir. Mais ce n'est pas vraiment pour trouver une solution aujourd'hui. Merci.
Kiwa, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Et je voudrais remercier le secrétariat pour l'information bien complète qui vient de nous donner et qui montre un peu la situation et que c'est objet de préoccupation de tous les États membres. C'est une convention jeune, mais peut-être que d'ici à 10 années, nous avons un grand problème sur la table. Pour ça, est-ce que c'est bien important de prendre note de toutes ces questions et faire une évaluation et faire une réflexion le plus complexe possible, parce que sinon, on sera depuis 5 ans, depuis 2 ans dans la même situation. C'est bien que ce n'est pas la même que la Convention de 72, mais on doit attirer quelque chose qui aujourd'hui sont des phénomènes qui passent dans ces conventions, très dangereux aussi, et qui arrivent en politisation de ces conventions. C'est très complexe aujourd'hui. À la Convention de 72, c'est terrible, la liste en péril, et c'est un problème pour la bonne marche de convention. Mais de toute façon, je crois que c'est un débat qui ce n'est pas exclusif du comité. Je pense que l'Assemblée de cette partie doit faire partie de ce débat parce que sinon, après, on doit recommencer d'autres groupes de travail et tout comme ça. Et pour ça, ce que je voudrais souligner, ça, toutes les questions qu'on parle parle, les groupes de travail, il y a une liaison bien directe avec l'Assemblée de cette partie pour pouvoir arriver à une solution, un consensus, et que tous les États membres sont partis pour pouvoir commencer à réfléchir sur ça et éviter d'ici à 5 ans la même situation et les problèmes qu'aujourd'hui on vit dans la Convention de 72. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Algeria, please take the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Tout d'abord, pour nous, il est important de préciser que pour ma délégation, la réflexion primaire qui doit être faite est la réflexion sur l'esprit des listes et sur leur impact sur la Convention et sur la sauvegarde des éléments. Il est important d'avoir aujourd'hui un regard sur comment ont évolué les listes liées à la Convention de 2003 et de faire très attention à ne pas avoir des listes à plusieurs vitesses. Nous en avons parlé au début de cette journée. Nous ne souhaitons pas voir les listes se transformer en, d'un côté, une liste entre guillemets infamante où celle des pauvres, où on nécessite une sauvegarde urgente, et de l'autre celle des États qui ont les moyens d'investir en matière de patrimoine immatériel et de présenter que des meilleures pratiques. Et ça, c'est un véritable problème auquel il faudra s'atteler. Et le transfert d'une liste à une autre est lié à ces éléments-là. Donc c'est vraiment une réflexion profonde sur le pourquoi et le comment et l'impact de ces listes qu'il faut mener. Et effectivement, il faut que ce soit un travail d'experts et que les experts se réunissent à ce sujet. Mais il faut aussi que ce soit un travail intergouvernemental. Donc pour nous, l'idéal, ce serait d'avoir d'abord une réunion d'experts qui plancherait sur le sujet et par la suite, nous nous saisirions de la question à un niveau intergouvernemental. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. Now let's give the floor to Austria.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the spirit of what has already been mentioned, we believe this is a highly complex issue, but also a very interesting development. And it has been said that it has become clear from this case that the committee still has very few instruments in the event of wishing to move elements. And there is no indicator yet for a procedure regarding the removal of an element. And an important point we believe raised is the reconsideration of the purposes of the lists and also the danger of creating hierarchies between them. We agree that a removal from the urgent safeguarding to the representative list should not be considered as an indicator of achievement. And we also support the link that has been made between the urgent safeguarding list and the register of good safeguarding practices, because of course it makes sense to promote and share a successful safeguarding plan. We also deem it absolutely necessary that the communities, groups and individuals concerned provide their informed consent, because as we've had heard, they are in the best position to evaluate the status of the element. And finally, we agree that the introduction of new forms, criteria and requests should be given careful consideration, and therefore fully support to create an open-ended and inclusive intergovernmental working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Austria. Turkey had a specific question for the evaluation body, so we would like to give the floor to them so we can listen to their answer.
Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. Je voudrais remercier l'honorable délégué de la Turquie pour cette question sur les difficultés que nous avons rencontrées au moment de l'évaluation de cette candidature pour la première fois. Je ne peux que vous renvoyer à notre rapport, puisque on y trouve l'essentiel de ce que nous avons rencontré en termes de difficultés. D'abord, la question du format. Le format du rapport ne suit pas le format habituel des formulaires de candidature, ce qui fait que pour savoir si les informations qui sont contenues dans le rapport permettent de confirmer ou non que les critères d'inscription sur la liste de sauvegarde urgente sont toujours valables ou non. Cela a été un peu difficile. La question du besoin d'une procédure claire a été pour nous un motif de difficulté. Nous avons la procédure que vous avez mise dans la décision 10 comme 19, que nous avons suivie à la lettre, mais il manque une procédure claire pour le retrait d'une liste et pour le transfert vers une autre liste. Troisième difficulté, le consentement des communautés. Et c'est un consentement double, le consentement pour le retrait de la liste de sauvegarde urgente et le consentement pour la candidature, s'il y a lieu, pour inscription sur la liste représentative. Ensuite, le mécanisme de transfert, nous étions amenés à nous baser uniquement sur la confiance dans les données qui nous sont fournies par l'État partie. Et je dois dire que nous étions d'accord que les données quantitatives et qualitatives justifiaient le retrait parce qu'on a le sentiment, sur la base du rapport, que la situation de l'élément s'est nettement améliorée. Ensuite, une autre difficulté concerne le plan de sauvegarde. Parce que comme vous pouvez le voir, le plan de sauvegarde continue jusqu'à 2020. Est-ce qu'on peut dire aujourd'hui, alors que le plan de sauvegarde n'a pas encore été achevé, est-ce que les résultats ont été atteints? Nous avons considéré qu'ils étaient atteints et qu'ils peuvent être encore améliorés. Et d'ailleurs, vous avez recommandé à l'État partie de poursuivre la mise en œuvre du plan de sauvegarde. Ensuite, la dernière question, et je crois qu'elle est importante et vous en avez discuté, c'est l'objectif de la liste de sauvegarde urgente. Je crois que ça aussi, c'est une question dont nous avons discuté. Est-ce que les éléments sont amenés à rester indéfiniment sur cette liste? Est-ce que son objectif, c'est d'attirer l'attention sur la viabilité de l'élément et faire en sorte que leur viabilité soit restaurée pour qu'ils puissent en sortir un jour? Ça aussi, c'est une question sur laquelle nous avons beaucoup réfléchi. Voilà. Merci beaucoup, Madame la Présidente. J'espère que cela permet de répondre à la question qui a été posée par l'honorable délégué de la Turquie.
Thank you so much. I see Hungary asking for the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And let me also congratulate you for taking the role of the chair. Our delegation fully agrees that this issue of transfer between lists raises the fundamental questions and issues of this convention and for its implementation, which has far-reaching consequences. We also agree with the assessment presented by the Secretariat and also with the main findings of the evaluation body in its report. We highlighted during the discussion of the transfer of the element of the Vietnamese file the issue of community consent. Indeed, this is also mentioned in the document itself, and it was also mentioned by Austria and by the evaluation body just before me. As the two lists have specific and distinct objectives, we think it's particularly important that communities are aware of the implications of this transfer. And that's why we have made an amendment to the draft resolution in this sense, draft decision in this sense. Let me also raise a semantic issue that has, in a way, just been mentioned also before me, the urgent safeguarding list. If something needs urgent safeguarding, then action has to be done, and some kind of result is to be expected. Now, situations may differ largely between countries and different contexts. So we cannot make a blanket rule to all of these cases. But by and large, we believe that getting an item off the urgent safeguarding list should be our objective. If an item is on the urgent safeguarding list, it is because its viability is endangered. So if our main objective is to safeguard ICH, then we should do our best. The committee and the instruments of the convention should do their best to remedy that situation and to help the element get in good shape. And last, let me raise a question on this issue to the Secretariat. I would like to hear, maybe not today, but maybe this is something for a further study, but if there are elements of response today, I would be very grateful, for the links between the urgent safeguarding listing, the international assistance mechanism, and the capacity building program. Whether the elements that are on the USL list, to what extent they have benefited from international assistance mechanism, whether specific capacity building programs have been put in place in their case, what is the situation there? And maybe one last question that is, although technical nature, also needs a practical acting upon, is the periodicity of the different reports. The periodic report of 6 years may not be adequate to assess requests for transfer. States parties should not have to wait 6 years in order to be able to file requests for transfer. So there certainly has to be a mechanism for specific reporting in the case of transfers of one element from this to the other. We also agree with the suggestion of Algeria that the further reflection should start with perhaps with an expert group work first, that should later broaden into an intergovernmental expert meeting. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. I see non-committee member asking for the floor, so we will give the floor to the... No? Oh, okay, Côte d'Ivoire, please. And after Korea.
Merci Madame la Présidente et félicitations pour la direction de nos travaux cet après-midi. La Côte d'Ivoire fait sienne toutes les observations qui ont été faites par les autres pays et comme le matin nous avons soulevé lors de l'examen de l'élément du Vietnam, il se pose un vrai problème de procédure. De procédure par rapport à l'initiative. À qui appartient l'initiative de faire sortir un élément qui est déjà inscrit sur une liste, l'élément de retrait ou de transfert d'un élément d'une liste à une autre. Et cela doit être enfermé dans combien de temps? Est-ce qu'il y a un délai? Il y a toutes ces questions qui n'ont pas été résolues par les directives opérationnelles sur lesquelles nous devons vraiment nous pencher. Et comme l'a dit un autre pays, la clé au niveau de notre convention, c'est les mesures de sauvegarde que nous devons prendre. Est-ce que les mesures de sauvegarde telles que définies qui ont permis d'inscrire un élément sur une liste, est-ce que ces mesures sont toujours d'actualité? Qu'est-ce que nous devons faire pour vérifier si oui ou non ces mesures peut-être ne correspondent pas à la liste sur laquelle l'élément est inscrit pour que nous puissions faire aboutir à un transfert ou à un retrait? Et nous pensons que, comme l'a dit l'Algérie, il faut peut-être confier la question, réfléchir en profondeur sur toutes ces directives opérationnelles. Parce qu'en faisant la comparaison avec la Convention de 72, nous voyons qu'au niveau de la Convention de 72, il y a des organes consultatifs qui vont sur le terrain et c'est eux qui formulent les recommandations aux États par rapport. Lorsqu'un bien est inscrit sur la liste du patrimoine en péril, ce sont les organes consultatifs qui vont sur le terrain, qui font des observations et les États doivent répondre à ces observations afin que le bien puisse être retiré de la liste ou pas. Or ici, l'initiative appartient à qui? À l'État lui-même qui a inscrit l'élément ou au secrétariat, à l'organe d'évaluation. Ce sont toutes ces questions auxquelles nous devons répondre au niveau de notre comité pour pouvoir assurer la sauvegarde des éléments qui sont inscrits sur les différentes listes. Et comme l'a dit si bien la Hongrie, ce qui importe, ce sont les mesures de sauvegarde. Et il faut vraiment confier la question à des experts. Et je me rappelle quand je venais à mes tout débuts au niveau de l'UNESCO, il y avait la question de l'option de renvoi, la question de l'option de renvoi qui avait été confiée à 2 experts, je crois, dont je pense l'ambassadeur de l'Azerbaïdjan, qui avait travaillé là-dessus. Et c'est après leur travail que les États membres ont été saisis et toutes ces questions de renvoi ont été portées à la connaissance des États et il y a eu des modifications au niveau des directives opérationnelles. Nous pensons qu'il y a des questions réelles qui se posent ici avec le transfert de l'élément soumis par le Vietnam auquel nous devons tous réfléchir et peut-être confier d'abord le travail à des experts et au niveau des États, réfléchir chacun à son niveau, comment y apporter notre contribution pour qu'ensemble nous puissions vraiment prendre des mesures adéquates pour la sauvegarde de notre patrimoine. Merci.
Thank you, Goddewa. We give the floor to Republic of Korea.
감사합니다, 의장님. 저는 이 문제를 조금 시간적 간격을 두고 생각을 해야 한다고 판단하고 있습니다. 긴급 보호 목록이라 하면 긴급한 보호 조치를 취하고 그 결과를 확인할 수 있는 성과를 파악한 다음에 해당 내용이 대표 목록으로 갈 수 있는지에 대한 가능성을 판단해야 한다고 생각합니다. 다행히 우리에게는 회기 보고서라는 제도가 있습니다. 긴급 보호 목록에서 각 당사국 정부가 취한 조치가 얼마나 효과적이었는지를 회기 보고서를 보고 판단할 수 있는 시간이 있을 겁니다. 그 이후에 대표 목록으로 전환되는 것을 검토하는 것이 가장 맞지 않을까 생각하고요. 마찬가지로 대표 목록에서 긴급 보호 목록으로 전환되는 것도 마찬가지입니다. 전성의 해당 문화재의 전성의 현장은 그렇게 급하게 바뀌지 않습니다. 시간을 두고 대표 목록에 등재된 종목이 전성 환경이 악화되는지 등등을 회기 보고서를 보고 판단할 수 있을 거기 때문에 그 내용을 보고 긴급으로 전환할 수 있는 그런 시간적 여유를 두고 이 문제를 판단했으면 좋겠습니다. 감사합니다.
Thank you, Republic of Korea. I see Saint Lucia asking for the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and congratulations for your assumption of the chair. Madam Chair, I don't want to go over a lot of the conceptual and very important discussions that have come from my other colleagues. I support, we all agree, this is a very, very important discussion that needs some time to resolve. It is complex and it has some very far-reaching implications. And in the process of doing this, whatever we come up to, I don't think we want to minimize or devalue any of this list. This is one of our primary concerns. I just want to signal something that Hungary just raised, which seemed to me a very important thing in the whole process, and that is that our objective should be to remove from the list, remove elements from the list that need urgent safeguarding. And that particular process needs some very special attention because we need to put some serious systems in place that could help these elements. Urgency, this business of urgency is very, very important. It's the urgent need. And the removal from the, yes, we inscribe onto the list, but we should have an ultimate objective of getting them out from that list as much as possible. So I just want to signal the importance of that thing which was raised by Hungary, but I do support and side with a lot of what has been said before me. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Hungary asked a specific question for the Secretary, and Mr. Cortes wants to reply now, so I give him the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. And before I address specifically Hungary's question, I'd like to thank the delegations for their useful and interesting and encouraging feedback that we've received so far. Hungary asked some questions that were related to questions of urgency and whether we are doing capacity building and supporting issues about removing from the urgent safeguarding list. And as you have all said, the issues are complex and deep, and when we talk about, for instance, intergenerational issues, intergenerational transmission, how long does it take to know whether something has been intergenerationally transmitted? Are we talking in terms of generations? These questions, so these are the kinds of questions where perhaps some reflection is needed. If the transmission is intergenerational, then one might consider that it's a generation that is needed to know whether an element is no longer in need of urgent safeguarding. But that's a little apart. We have indeed been doing capacity building on development of safeguarding plans. We have also, in concerning the international assistance, combined international assistance and urgent safeguarding list, we have had only one experience where only one submitting state has requested. I believe there could be a lot to be done around that, and this is a potential area where the international assistance mechanism could be better utilized and perhaps more, more encouraged. This is still to be explored. And the periodicity of the periodic reportings is another issue, as you rightly brought up. For the representative list, the periodic, they are included in the overall implementation of the convention periodic report. And as we discussed also in the overall results framework, that issue will be going forward. And where will that leave the question of the representative list? The urgent safeguarding reports are every 4 years, and they come with plans, and it's not very clear how long the urgent safeguarding plans under criterion U3 are. It's not clearly defined how long they need to be. And in the case of Vietnam, in fact, it was into this phase, it was into the second plan. So one plan had been fully implemented, and in fact, they were in the implementation of a new plan that had happened after their previous report. So again, I think don't want to go into all the details. There are many complex issues we are trying, but we feel very strongly in agreement with many of the comments made here today. There needs to be expert consultation. There needs to be broad intergovernmental consultation. And whilst, yes, the intention is to remove an element from its state of urgent safeguarding, we cannot ignore the potential parallels that many understand in relation to the endangered list of endangered status within one list of the World Heritage System, and some negative connotations that have occurred around that, and which could be perhaps should be treated cautiously in relation to the urgent safeguarding list, so as not to shy states away from making use of this mechanism. I mean, these are complex questions. I don't think I can address them all, but thank you. I don't know if I've addressed exactly your questions. I've just tried to give you some of where we are at. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. Okay, now I don't see any committee member asking for the floor, and but as an observer, Japan has asked for the floor, so we would like to listen what they have to say.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We also thank the Secretariat for the clarification of this agenda. Please just give me a short brief. We consider the transfer of elements from one list to another to be more than a mere technical issue, and we think that it could be an opportunity to reflect on the core purpose or meaning of the Convention. This examination might raise difficult issues, but at the same time, we could view it possibly as a necessary step for the development of the Convention. Therefore, Japan would like to welcome the creation of the open-ended intergovernmental working group, and we are interested in contributing to its debates. Thank you.
Thank you, Japan. Since we don't see any more committee members or observers or others asking for the floor, we think we can just go to the draft decision and try to see on the screen the draft decision, please. Okay, let's see, let us proceed paragraph by paragraph. So, paragraph 1, it's just about having examined the document. I think we all agree and it could be adopted. Okay, I see none comments, so it's adopted. Then we see the paragraph number 2, recalling the relevant paragraphs of the operational directives. I see no objections, adopted. Let's see the paragraph number 3, recalling our decisions taken last year in the past days. Any objections? No objections. Then we go to the paragraph number 4, where we have some amendments from Turkey, Philippines, India. So maybe one of these countries, they want to explain the amendment, please. No need? Okay, so Turkey. Yeah.
I think it's self-explanatory because it just takes note that the open-ended intergovernmental group were not able to discuss this removal issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. So, no comments? Okay, adopted. Then we go to the paragraph number 5 to reiterate the need for revision of the operational directives. Any comment? Turkey, you have the floor.
No, just to explain, it's just to emphasize that the case of Vietnam was on an exceptional basis, just to put the emphasis on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. So if there are no comments, adopted. Then let's go to the paragraph number 6, which acknowledge that the transfer of an element raises issues linked to the overall purpose of the convention. I believe no one has a comment, so it's adopted. Paragraph number 7 invite states parties to refrain from submitting requests from transfer until clear procedures have been established. I think we all agree, adopted. Then we have paragraph number 8 that once again call upon the generosity of the states to finance an open-ended intergovernmental working group that will be hopefully held in 2018 or 2019. Any objection? Adopted. Then we go to paragraph number 9, where we have an amendment. I don't know if there are any comments.
Sorry,
Algeria, please.
Je suis désolé, Madame la Présidente, mais vous allez un peu trop vite. On a essayé d'attirer votre attention. Et pouvons-nous revenir au paragraphe 8, s'il vous plaît? Je suis désolé de revenir sur un paragraphe adopté, mais nous avons des questionnements à ce sujet, donc sur le retrait du ministère de l'Éducation fondamentale, sur le groupe ad hoc, sur l'open-ended group. Est-ce qu'on peut revenir aussi vers le 7, s'il vous plaît? Voilà. Je ne vois pas, pardon, j'essaie de retrouver le paragraphe où on appelle à la création d'un... ah oui, le 9. Pouvons-nous maintenant revenir au 8, s'il vous plaît? Merci. Je souhaiterais faire une proposition au comité, pas un drafting, mais une proposition. Et je souhaiterais que le comité puisse la considérer. Étant donné que nous n'avons pas réussi à avoir des financements pour créer un groupe open-ended, est-ce qu'il ne serait pas temps de réfléchir à créer un groupe restreint qui serait moins lourd à financer qu'un open-ended group? Donc c'est la question que je pose aux collègues membres du comité et également au secrétariat. Est-ce que ce ne serait pas plus rationnel de réfléchir maintenant? On a attendu deux ans, un peu plus, d'avoir des financements pour un open-ended. Un open-ended coûte extrêmement cher, comme on peut l'imaginer. Et peut-être que nous pourrions réfléchir à recommander d'avoir, le cas échéant, un groupe composé de 2 représentants de chaque groupe électoral, qu'ils puissent plancher. C'est une proposition que nous faisons aux membres du comité.
Okay, thank you, Algeria. We will take your recommendation. Turkey, please take the floor.
Just to react to my colleague from Algeria, if I understood correctly, he suggested to have a restrictive group to discuss the issue of transfer. I mean, if that's the case, we would not be able to agree to that because this relates to all states parties to this convention, and I think it should be discussed with in a very inclusive manner, because in the end it will be adopted by the General Assembly, right, of the states party. So if we don't want to face a challenge there, I think it should be as inclusive as possible, so that we accommodate all the concerns with all states parties present in the discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. Now, please, Cuba, take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Concernant le paragraphe 9, nous sommes sur ce paragraphe, non? Sur le paragraphe 9. Et j'ai la doute parce que je crois que c'est sa partie déjà du débat qu'on va faire. Je ne sais pas quelle est la logique de mettre ce paragraphe ici. C'est un élément très important, c'est une question très importante, mais font partie du débat qu'on va faire pendant ce groupe de travail, pendant l'Assemblée générale, je ne sais pas, mais je ne sais pas quelle est la raison de mettre ces questions concernant si les États qui a proposé ce paragraphe peuvent m'expliquer, parce que je ne comprends bien. C'est une question importante, nous sommes d'accord, mais je ne sais pas pourquoi le mettre sur ce projet de décision, parce que, à notre avis, c'est une question qu'on doit réfléchir dans les groupes de travail. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. I will give the floor to Austria, and then I will ask one of the committee members that suggested the amendment on the paragraph 1 to give an explanation. Austria, please.
I was also going to react to the discussion we had before and to support the honorable delegation from Turkey, who had expressed, and we would like to confirm that it is a very important issue we are dealing here with, and which has quite large implications also for the future development. And I think this needs a very inclusive and broad working group to include all the positions by as many state parties as possible. Thank you.
Okay, we'll do something. Algeria proposed...
Point of order.
Okay, Hungary?
Excuse me, Madam Chair, for taking a point of order. We don't see on the screen the proposal made by Algeria. From what the delegate of Algeria said, I understood that there was an amendment that he proposed. And I don't see that on the screen. I don't know what we are debating now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, Algeria proposed a discussion on the paragraph number 8, so we'll go back to that debate, then we'll be coming back to the paragraph number 9. So, Mr. Algeria has a...
Je suis désolé d'avoir introduit la confusion au sein du comité, je m'en excuse, Madame la Présidente, je vais préciser ma pensée. Nous avions un amendement à faire dans le paragraphe 8, mais après avoir demandé l'avis du comité. Et loin de nous d'exclure qui que ce soit, nous avions à l'esprit une proposition pratique, étant donné que les financements sont rares. et qu'un open-ended va être difficile à mettre en place, sauf si quelqu'un ici dans la salle est prêt à nous faire la surprise et à nous annoncer qu'il va nous donner l'argent pour organiser cet open-ended bientôt. Dans ce cas-là, nous serons les premiers à nous lever pour applaudir. Mais étant donné que nous avons un souci de financement, on a proposé au comité de considérer peut-être l'option d'avoir au début quelque chose qui soit drafté par un comité restreint et que par la suite nous puissions en discuter sur une base plus large dans un open-ended à Paris, au siège de l'UNESCO, là où on peut se réunir avec toutes les délégations. Loin de moi d'imposer quelque chose qui ne soit pas... Nous sommes les premiers à parler d'inclusivité et à présenter et à demander à ce que tous soient à bord. Mais là, on parle vraiment de quelque chose de restreint. Toutefois, si la proposition de ma délégation n'agrée pas le comité, nous n'aurons aucun amendement à présenter au paragraphe 8. Voilà notre proposition, Madame la Présidente. Merci.
Thank you, Algeria. I will give the floor to the Secretary. He wants to make clear some points.
Thank you. If I understand, the question was partly addressed to the Secretariat as well, and we heard some concerns, and I must say, as the Secretariat, we think the open-ended process is indeed necessary. This issue has very sensitive ramifications in very different contexts for many states, and we would strongly recommend a fully open-ended group. And allow me to say, we did hold an open-ended group last year. We were able to, with financing. It's not unreasonable to envisage that some states are indeed interested in supporting an open-ended process. A two-stage process might be okay, but I see that as actually a more use of resources because I believe there's no way we can avoid a fully open-ended discussion on something that has to do so intimately with the way so many states engage with the convention. So I think the intention is good, but if possible, and there's a funding only for that, but I would prefer to approach donors for the fully open-ended, inclusive process so that we do it. My opinion is that a fully open-ended process is necessary for such issues which have to go to the General Assembly. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Curtis. I see Cyprus. You have the word.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je crois qu'il y a un problème dans l'ordre du travail. On parlait pour les paragraphes anciens 6 et maintenant 9, et d'un seul coup, on part du paragraphe 8 qui va venir après 11. Donc, il faut savoir sur quoi on parle maintenant.
Yeah, exactly. We were discussing that now. There was a change in the order of the document that Mr. Curtis will explain to us.
No, indeed, paragraph 8 of the original document dealt with the open-ended group. And paragraph 8, as the amended document, is now paragraph 11, and so the confusion. Thank you.
What we will do is that we will go back to the order of the document we have on the screen. So let's go back to the number 8 that we need. Yeah, okay. Then see the 9, we will discuss the number 9, and then we will be back to the subject we were trying to talk about now. So for the number 9, the committee members that proposed that amendment were asked to give an explanation. So I would like to know if Hungary, Philippines, Palestine, Cyprus, Guatemala, Algeria, or whom would like to explain the purpose of this amendment. Hungary, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I can do so if nobody else endeavors at this stage. This amendment stems from the lesson learned in the case of the transfer of the element that we did this morning. It was our understanding that this committee identified this as an important issue. And I fully agree with my delegate from Cuba that the open-ended working group, expert working group, will deal with such issues and many more issues of this kind that are identified in the report. But I think that based on the lesson learned today, this is one point that can already be identified as a matter that should certainly be taken care of in that working group. So in the sense of procedure, we think that the committee is sovereign to point out certain issues that as a matter of principle, that should be included for consideration in the working of the working group. Thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. I see Cuba asking for the floor.
Oui, je comprends les questions qui viennent de mettre sur la table les collègues de la Hongrie, mais dans ce cas, on doit parler du mandat de ces groupes ouverts, on doit parler de quel sujet il va traiter ces groupes ouverts. Mais je ne vais pas insister sur ces questions, mais je crois que par avance, on met quelques questions concernant un débat qui doit être plus ouvert, plus général, et qu'on doit examiner des autres choses qui sont aussi très importantes. Mais je ne vais pas insister, Madame la Présidente, parce que je sais bien qu'il manque des autres sujets pour examiner dans notre ordre du jour, mais je pense que ce n'est pas la bonne façon de travailler. Si on va créer un groupe de travail ouvert, on doit dire quel est le mandat, quels sont les sujets qu'il va examiner, quel est le temps qu'il va travailler, mais pas d'une façon ici sélective en question sur l'autre, parce qu'on donne plus d'importance sur ces sujets que des autres choses si on met seulement ces questions sur les projets de décision. Merci.
Cyprus, please.
Merci, Madame. Je pense qu'il faut adopter paragraphe par paragraphe avant de parler encore du groupe de travail. On mélange tout à ce moment. Donc, il faut d'abord adopter les 9 et les 10 et après on part sur les 11. Et non pas chaque fois on parle ce qu'on veut. Merci.
I agree with Cyprus. So I would like to know if Austria, give me the list. I would like to know if Austria, you have something to say about paragraph number 9, or
Yes.
Okay, please.
We would like to support paragraph 9 because if I remember correctly, in the morning we had also the discussion on community consent and then we said, well, let's have it in the afternoon. And I think it's a good thing to have it here stated that community consent is of utmost importance.
Then we have Turkey, something about paragraph number 9.
Yes, Madam Chair. Well, of course, we fully acknowledge the importance of the communities concerned, that they are being informed. And we don't question that. We find this equally important. But this, I will echo my colleague from Cuba, this should be discussed at the open-ended working group. So this is not us at this committee meeting to reflect on the decision and by adopting a piecemeal approach. Everything is important, and this is one of them, and it should be the outcome of the open-ended working group to adopt this to our understanding. That's why we would like to raise our concern. But if the general tendency is to adopt as such, we will not, of course, block the consensus, but we have concerns with regard to this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Turkey. Cyprus, please.
C'est juste pour donner une réponse à ma collègue de Turquie, c'est que parce qu'on a soulevé les problèmes ce matin pour les transferts du dossier de Vietnam, c'est pour ça qu'on insiste de les mettre, ces paragraphes ici. Mais s'il n'y a pas de consensus, on peut les retirer. Mais je pense que ce sera mieux de les laisser pour montrer le travail d'hier sur Vietnam. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. I see Cuba asking for the floor.
Oui, je comprends bien l'intention de ces paragraphes et nous sommes tout à fait d'accord avec l'importance d'informer les communautés. Mais dans ce cas, il y a une contradiction con le paragraphe 10 qui invite les États parties de s'abstenir de soumettre des demandes de transférer un élément dans la liste d'autres, parce que c'est parti d'un débat qu'on avait fait, qu'on doit étudier la façon, que c'est d'une façon exceptionnelle que nous avons le faire pour le Vietnam. Et je regarde en contradiction de mettre un paragraphe avant le 9, comme qu'il a proposé ce pays, et après le paragraphe 10. Il n'y a pas aucun problème con le principe de ce paragraphe. C'est que c'est un paragraphe qui n'est pas bien ubiqué. Et c'est partie du mandat de ces groupes de travail. Je suis d'accord avec la collègue de Chypre qu'on ne peut pas mélanger les questions de principe et les questions qui correspondent au mandat du groupe de travail. Mais je pense que la ubication de ce paragraphe 9, ce n'est pas la correcte. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Turkey, please take the floor.
No, just briefly to support what has and to endorse what has just been said by Cuba. We endorse the importance of the principle reflected in the paragraph, but it should be the outcome of the open-ended working group. Thank you.
Okay, I will propose something. Since the document we have on the screen is different and it has a different order from the one we had before we came to the committee, let's stop here the discussion about the paragraph number 9. We continue, and if we see that it could be in another order, it should continue in this document, or we can change our opinion over this paragraph. So I will propose to continue, and then we'll see where we can place, or if we have to place this specific item in this document. Do you agree? Okay, I see Afghanistan, you want to say something?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I fully agree with your suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you. So let's move on. About the paragraph number 10, that invites state parties to refrain from submitting requests for the transfer of the element from one list to another until we have some operational directives for that. Do we agree with this paragraph? Any comments? Okay, so adopted. Then we go to the paragraph number 11, and wait a second. Okay, so for the number 11, we have to convene an open-ended intergovernmental working group. And here is where we can take back Algeria's point before, and here is where we have to debate on which is, let's say, what we have to include here to see if we include specific elements as we were debating before or not. So I will give the floor to Algeria, please.
Non, concernant notre première proposition, Madame la Présidente, il semble qu'elle n'agrée pas le comité, donc nous ne voyons pas la nécessité d'en faire partie, bien que nous souhaiterions que vous en fassiez rapport dans votre rapport, vous en fassiez mention dans votre rapport oral, ou qu'il soit bien établi que nous aurions voulu, si les financements n'étaient pas venus pour un groupe de travail open-ended, qu'il soit au moins considéré le fait que nous aurions proposé un groupe restreint pour un premier drafting, pour ensuite travailler de manière plus inclusive. Cela étant dit, nous avons un petit amendement au paragraphe 11. Nous souhaiterions changer la dénomination, donc to convene, donc de convoquer un groupe de travail non intergouvernemental, mais un groupe de travail d'experts, pour qu'il n'y ait pas de confusion possible, parce que pour nous, c'est vraiment un travail d'experts, et en utilisant le terme intergouvernemental, cela présuppose aussi les délégations permanentes à l'UNESCO. Certes, nous, en tant que délégation, nous continuerons à nous saisir de cette question et à en discuter, mais le premier input doit venir des experts. Je vous remercie.
Thank you so much, Algeria, for your point here. Do we have any comment? Senegal, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je remercie l'Algérie pour cette précision, mais je voulais informer qu'à Chengdu, c'était un groupe de travail intergouvernemental, mais dédié aux experts. Est-ce qu'on peut préciser quand même que c'est une réunion intergouvernementale où les experts sont conviés? Je ne sais pas, est-ce qu'il faut s'arrêter simplement à un groupe de travail d'experts? parce que ça pose problème, parce que dès l'instant que ça demande une large implication, si vous voulez, par rapport aux décisions qui vont être prises, ça ne peut pas être une réunion d'experts uniquement. Merci.
Thank you, Senegal. I give the floor first to Turkey, then to Cuba, please.
Thank you. I think I will tend to agree with Senegal. I mean, this should be expert intergovernmental working group maybe, but some countries, I mean, some member states would tend to send their experts, but some would attend by permanent delegation. So we should not limit to specifically to experts. It should be up to the member state to decide. So in that sense, and with Algeria's insertion, then it makes I'm confused. The last sentence, but only for persons who are experts in intangible cultural heritage, that limits. So I think maybe we should delete that part of the paragraph. Thank you.
Okay, I will give the floor to Cuba, and then I will give the floor to Mr. Cortés, who wants to clarify some information here.
Merci Madame la Présidente, mais c'est un peu compliqué parce que normalement c'est un groupe de travail ouvert. Chaque État partie est libre de désigner la personne qui va se représenter parce qu'à l'UNESCO, il y a 6 catégories de réunions. Il y a des réunions des experts, qu'il y a un processus, il y a un financement, c'est nommé par la directrice générale, que c'est dans le règlement de l'organisation. Mais on ne peut pas mélanger les deux choses, parce que c'est une réunion d'experts, il y a un processus, et c'est une réunion catégorie 1, 2, 3, 4 et 6. Il y a 6 catégories de réunions à l'UNESCO. Et si on va faire un groupe de travail, c'est un groupe de travail ouvert et chaque État partie, c'est un comité intergouvernemental, est libre de décider qui c'est la personne qui le représente. Peut-être un expert, peut-être les délégations permanentes, ou les deux. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. I would like to give the floor to Mr. Cortés.
I would like to just explain that actually what we are following is the operational directives. In the operational directives for General Assembly or for the committee, the use of the fund is for experts, even though the meeting is intergovernmental. And that is why when we provide international assistance, when we use the fund so these are the rules of the convention, that the fund is used to pay for the participation of experts, but it doesn't mean it's an expert meeting. When we did the open-ended working group in Jeju, the year before, we had an expert meeting with other financing to develop the first phase of the proposal to then go to the open-ended group. But it's, just 1 minute, under Part 3, Rule 5 of the Rules of Procedure for the Committee, under 5.4, it is the exact language used there that is used here. So again, to clarify, an open-ended intergovernmental group is indeed an intergovernmental group, but the funding of participation is only for the presence of the experts and not for the presence, or it's up to the state to decide whether it wants to come with a representative and an expert or just an expert. But the funds have always been used just to finance the participation of experts. We could also do an expert meeting, but as Cuba said, that is a different category of meeting, and we did that in the Chengdu case. We first had an expert meeting, and then we had an intergovernmental meeting where we offered to finance the participation of experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortés. I see Cyprus and then Guatemala.
Merci, Madame la Présidente, et merci aussi à Tim pour ces explications qu'il nous a dit. Mais c'est vrai qu'un groupe de travail, quand il a lieu à l'UNESCO, malheureusement, on n'a pas les experts qui viennent. Et c'est toujours les membres de délégation qui font le groupe de travail, qui font le travail. Maintenant, je ne sais pas, si en effet on a les coûts de participation pour des experts qui viennent à la réunion, en groupe de travail, oui. Mais apparemment, ce ne sera pas pour tous les experts qui vont avoir ça. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Please, Guatemala take the floor, and after Guatemala, Cuba take the floor.
Thank you very much. Just to ask a question, is the fund going to pay to finance the participation in this meeting? If not, we fully support what was said by Cuba. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Guatemala. Cuba after Algeria.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Je m'excuse de reprendre la parole, mais peut-être on peut organiser ces réunions un jour, 2 jours avant de la réunion de l'Assemblée d'État parties pour propicier que les experts puissent participer. Je sais bien et je partage la préoccupation de la collègue de Chypre. C'est bien que tous les groupes des amis, les groupes de travail ouverts à l'UNESCO qui participent des délégations permanentes à Paris, mais c'est bien que c'est très important que les experts font partie de ces groupes, mais on peut l'organiser un jour, 2 jours avant de l'Assemblée de cette partie ou de la prochaine réunion du comité. On peut organiser, ce n'est pas la première fois que l'UNESCO organise des groupes de travail de cette façon. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. Please, Algeria, take the floor.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente. Mon souci, quand nous avons présenté cet amendement, c'était uniquement pour mettre un peu, clarifier un peu les choses. Maintenant que le secrétariat nous dit que c'est les règles de procédure, c'est les règles de procédure. Mais pour nous, quand on entend open-ended et intergouvernemental, on n'a pas forcément à l'esprit une réunion d'experts. Alors que pour ce point bien précis, l'apport des experts est incommensurable et on ne peut pas avancer sans les explications et surtout les débats, le débat d'experts. C'est pour ça que nous souhaitions juste faire la distinction. Maintenant, si c'est les règles de procédure, c'est les règles de procédure, nous retirons notre amendement. Toutefois, nous souhaiterions avoir juste plus d'explications de la part du secrétariat sur la réunion d'experts, qui serait peut-être préalable à une réunion open-ended et peut-être parce que quand nous avions présenté notre idée de faire une réunion plus restreinte, c'est à ça que nous pensions, faire peut-être avoir la réunion d'experts préalable à l'open-ended. Donc, est-ce que nous pourrions avoir un peu plus d'explications et, si c'est possible, prévoir une clause qui pourrait faire organiser une réunion d'experts préalable à l'open-ended? Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. I think Mr. Cortes can help us.
Okay, thank you. And I think, before I answer the concern of Algeria, I think this, just to give some context of why this is here and based on the past experiences, it is so that the donor, whoever funds this, is bound to the rules whereby experts of developing countries are given a chance to get funding to participate in these sessions. So that is the logic behind, so that if we get funding, it must also include the cost of participation of experts from developing countries. What we did for the last Intergovernmental Open-Ended Working Group was we had some contribution from the National Commission for People's Republic of China the year before to organize an expert group, which was not an intergovernmental expert group. I'll remember which category exactly it was, I can check, which we did in order to prepare the preliminary proposals to the intergovernmental group. And should you request us to do that, we can, but it would also be subject to extra budgetary funding. But of course it costs less than an intergovernmental working group. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortes. I see Hungary, then Senegal, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This debate is indeed complex. The terminology seems to be changing. Back in 2002, September, when this convention was drafted, actually it was drafted before by independent experts in their private capacity, requested by the Director General of UNESCO. There were 3 meetings they had held, 2001, 2002. And then in 2002, September, and I read the terminology that is on the webpage of UNESCO, the first intergovernmental meeting of experts was held in UNESCO to develop the preliminary draft text of the convention, 2002 September. The second session of intergovernmental meeting of experts took place in 2003 February, and then an intersessional working group of government experts on the preliminary draft of the convention took place in 2003 April. So that was the terminology at the time, and the people participating in these intergovernmental meetings were experts. At least they were meant to be experts. We have been discussing so far that the matter of listing, removal, etc. is of prime importance to the convention. I don't know what language can best reflect, but we want this reflection to be carried out by experts, and if it's not possible to have it in 2 stages, as Algeria suggested, let it be in 1 stage, and then it will come in anyway to the committee and the General Assembly. But there should be, this fundamental question about listing should be also dealt with experts. If in their governmental empowerment capacity, let it be. But it should be a matter for experts as well to look at. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. I will give the floor to Senegal, please.
Si, Madame la Présidente. Excusez-moi de reprendre la parole. Normalement, c'était clair avec M. Curtis, le secrétaire, et également ce que notre collègue de la Hongrie vient de dire. La réunion de Chengdu, c'était une réunion intergouvernementale. Moi, en tout cas, j'y étais. Et c'est des experts, pour l'essentiel, qui ont travaillé. Je ne sais pas, peut-être qu'il y a eu quelques représentations de délégations ou bien de gouvernement à un niveau État, mais en tout cas, ce qui était pris en charge, c'était les experts. C'est pourquoi quand notre collègue d'Algérie a posé le problème, j'ai dit, effectivement, il peut y avoir une réunion d'experts, mais il peut y avoir également une réunion intergouvernementale des experts. Je pense que la Hongrie a rappelé l'histoire de ces réunions qu'il y a eu. Nous, on précise ici au comité qu'on a besoin d'une réunion intergouvernementale, pas exclusivement, mais en tout cas dédiée aux experts pour réfléchir sur la question. On le précise dans notre réunion d'aujourd'hui. Je pense que c'est ce qu'il faut dire clairement et on s'adresse à des experts. Ce sera une réunion intergouvernementale avec des termes de référence clairs. Le bailleur également, qui va donner l'argent, saura qu'il finance pour une réunion des experts au niveau intergouvernemental. Merci.
Thank you, Senegal. Please, Cuba, take the floor.
Je me excuse, Madame la Présidente, pour reprendre la parole, mais nous sommes en train de mélanger 2 choses différentes. La création d'un groupe des experts pour la création d'une convention, c'est un processus complètement différent. C'est une faculté de la directrice générale, c'est un groupe des experts qui se crée, je pense que c'est les catégories 1, 2, 5, je ne sais pas bien, peut-être la conseillère juridique qui se trouve avec nous, je suis très content avec ça, de compter avec sa présence avec nous dans ces réunions. Il peut nous clarifier. Je crois que ce sont 2 processus différents, complètement différents. Quand l'organisation va créer une convention, un nouvel instrument normatif, c'est la procédure de créer un groupe d'experts qui travaillent dans l'élaboration, dans la confection de cet instrument normatif. Je pense que ce sont 2 processus différents. À l'UNESCO, dans les dernières 2 années, nous sommes pleins de créer groupes de travail pour aborder quelques questions parce qu'il n'y a pas de financement suffisant pour les faire sur les budgets ordinaires de l'organisation. Mais je pense que c'est bien les distingués délégués de la Hongrie, ils viennent de nous souvenir l'histoire, mais ce sont 2 processus complètement différents. Un processus 2001-2012, c'est dans le processus de création de ces conventions, et c'est ça pour réfléchir sur une question concernant la directrice opérative de ces conventions. On ne peut pas mélanger les choses. Merci.
Thank you, Cuba. I will give the floor to the Secretariat, so maybe you can help us to explain some stuff.
Before I say something, I understand there's a question to clarify what is an expert meeting summoned by the Director General and then an open-ended working group. Legal advice was going to say what the numbers of what exactly those kinds of meetings are. Thank you. And then I will come back.
Yes, so I'm sorry. Madam Chairperson, can I have the floor?
Yeah,
Thank you.
take the floor.
Well, this is just to be a brief clarification. Actually, there are two groups of meetings, generally, in UNESCO conventions, committees, etc. It's meetings of representative character, which can be international conference of states, intergovernmental meetings, and non-governmental meetings. They are composed of delegations or representations of states. Okay, so this is the first group. The second group is meetings of non-representative character. And in this category, in this group of meetings, you have different meetings such as experts, international congresses, advisory committees, etc. In the first group, you have 3 categories, which I'm not going to get into right now. And in the second group, you have another 8 categories. So in total, we have 8 categories of meetings. Leaving that aside, what matters here is actually not the terminology, but the nature of the meeting that you wish to convene. So in here is just a question of, do you want a representative meeting or non-representative meeting? I understand that it's your intention to create a representative meeting. This is what I'm hearing, but it's up to you to decide. Then in here, the terminology is not a problem, so it can be, but it has to be called intergovernmental something. Now, it is up to you as well to decide if the representative meeting will be composed of the experts of the government or not, or to leave it just open in order for the member states to decide themselves if they wish to bring experts or not. Thank you. I hope this clarifies things. Thank you.
Thank you so much to the legal advisor. I think Mr. Cortes can continue clarifications.
Okay, so just to clarify why this proposal is here like that. What we are proposing here is an open-ended intergovernmental meeting. But in stipulation of the rules of procedure of this convention, intergovernmental meetings of this convention should provide the fees for participation of experts from developing countries. And that is what has been decided, so that even if they are funded extra budgetary by a donor, okay? Now that doesn't stop us, be it an open-ended intergovernmental meeting or the creation of a convention, from also asking the Director General to organize, if possible, an expert group in order to help prepare the documentations for presentation to the intergovernmental meeting. This is what we did in the case of the Jeju intergovernmental meeting, but indeed the two are different. The fact that we mention the participation of experts being funded means only that we are following the practice of this convention, where developing states are given possibility to have funding for experts to attend these intergovernmental meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Cortes. I believe Algeria wants to, and then Philippines.
Juste une dernière question à notre secrétaire. Juste pour savoir, est-il nécessaire d'avoir une mention dans la décision pour organiser une réunion sur le schéma de celle de Jeju? Ça veut dire une réunion préalable à celle que nous appelons là maintenant. Si c'est le cas, nous souhaiterions avoir le langage pour cela, si cela est possible.
Thank you, Algeria. Please, Philippines, take the floor.
Thank you, Chair, but perhaps maybe the Secretary would wish to respond to Algeria's question
we would
first.
like to first
and
take
then I
some...
can come back after.
No, but we would like to take some more questions, and then we will give Mr. Cortes the floor.
Okay, Madam Chair, it wasn't really a question, but just to say that I think we've spent way too much time on this paragraph, and that I think with the explanations that it will be open-ended, but also open to expert participation. So on that understanding, perhaps we can move forward, but we fully understand Algeria's initial proposal, and we actually share some of his sentiments, because, for instance, the last one in Jeju, we had discussed earlier in our meeting, it was not fully, even though it was open-ended, it was not maybe necessarily completely accessible to all states parties. And I think that's the issue of his original proposal, is that the technical aspect can be, fully prepared, and then it be open and kind of open for inputs for the wider spectrum of states parties. So that's why I could understand where he was coming from. But with all the explanations, I think we could follow the same procedure for the overall results framework, but just to ensure that, such a meeting, when it does take place, doesn't overlap with any other big meetings, and that all countries are informed in advance so that, should they wish to also send experts, I mean, they can really, really engage in this important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippines. Please, Mr. Cortes, take the floor.
To answer the question of the delegate of Algeria, it is not necessary that we have the recommendation to do that. If you request us to first organize an expert meeting, then we cannot organize the intergovernmental meeting until we have organized an expert meeting. We would like to organize first an expert meeting to help us in the preparation of documentation which would be submitted to an intergovernmental meeting. But if we put it in first, then that becomes a requirement. So we left that option a little bit more flexible. For the Chengdu meeting, it was not a requirement, but we did it because we saw we had an opportunity of extra budgetary money to do it. Thank you.
Okay, I think here I would like to ask the Secretariat the options we have here, because I've seen different proposals. Algeria is proposing to modify something in this paragraph to... Okay, please. I mean, it's time to decide, so I will ask Mr. Cortes to summarize the situation for us to decide what we would like to adopt here.
Okay, I understand that what Algeria is suggesting to have first an expert meeting before going to an open-ended intergovernmental meeting. And that first expert meeting is not a restrained intergovernmental meeting. It is an expert meeting in the classic sense of a meeting as explained by legal affairs, a legal advisor. You can put that in if you wish as a request. My fear is that if we don't find funding for it, then we can't go straight to the intergovernmental meeting. But I think we will be very wise to have an expert meeting before we go. Thank you.
Merci Madame la Présidente. Étant donné que Monsieur le Secrétaire nous dit que ce n'est pas nécessaire d'avoir le langage pour tenir une telle réunion au préalable, nous n'insistons pas dessus et nous lui faisons confiance, pleinement confiance pour essayer de trouver les financements afin d'organiser une telle réunion. Je vous remercie Madame la Présidente.
Turkey, please take the floor.
Thank you. I think after all these discussions, I finally came to the conclusion that we all want the same thing. My concerns were exactly the same. So let's leave the para as it is, I understand now. But would it be maybe possible to insert something like encouraging states parties to provide extra budgetary funding to organize this expert meeting or intergovernment, so that it will be, in the decision to encourage states parties. Thank you.
Well, it's possible. I don't know if Secretariat can help us to add this request from Turkey.
Let me think.
1 second, they are preparing.
Perhaps what could be done is after the decision, after the paragraph that says 11 decides to convene, there could be a new paragraph to say encourages state parties to provide funding to convene an expert meeting in preparation of the open-ended intergovernmental working group. And we have a little paragraph at the end. We've noted that desire, but if we don't find funding, it doesn't stop us from going ahead. So perhaps would be our proposal then, to catch the sense of that.
Okay, if we agree to have one new paragraph that encourages the states parties, maybe we can go back to the paragraph 11, and I would like, Cyprus, you have the floor, please. Cyprus, please take the floor.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. On est tout à fait d'accord avec les rajouts de ces paragraphes, mais on voulait rajouter aussi dans le paragraphe 11, ce qu'elle a dit notre collègue de Cuba, de mettre que la réunion aura lieu 2 jours avant l'Assemblée générale. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Please, Cuba, take the floor.
Merci, merci Madame la Présidente. Normalement, le langage qu'on utilise quand on va demander quelques fonds pour une réunion et d'autres choses, c'est encourage à la secrétariat de trouver les fonds nécessaires afin de... Normalement, c'est le langage qu'on utilise pour ça. Merci.
You want to take...
Oui, bien sûr. Non, je pense que ça ne pose pas problème d'utiliser ce langage. J'ai des soucis sur l'insistance que ce soit 2 jours avant l'Assemblée générale. Dans notre organisation de travail, ça pose des problèmes. Je pense que... Et puis, si nous devons trouver un bailleur pour payer pour cela, c'est difficile d'imposer déjà de trop de conditions, hein. Et déjà, on leur impose de payer la participation des experts qui viennent des pays de développement. C'est difficile de dire, en plus, il faut que ce soit exactement ces dates-là. Donc, voilà, c'est mes soucis. Si vous mettez trop de... if it's too constraining, our chances of getting a donor will be reduced. So I have concerns about that addition. Thank you.
So, anyone has a comment about what Mr. Cortes just said? Cyprus.
Je ne suis pas d'accord. Qu'est-ce que ça va changer qu'on leur donne une date? C'est simplement une date qu'on va donner. On ne va pas leur demander quelque chose de plus. Ou, honnêtement, je ne comprends pas.
Well, Mr. Cortes, maybe you have something to say.
I have a feeling, if I may, that part of the concern about the previous open-ended working group, which was fully open-ended and all state parties were invited, was that it was not held in Paris. If I understand, and therefore delegations based in Paris felt that it was difficult to attend. So while, I mean, again, it's more difficult to insist, it's difficult to raise funds and to get a donor interested in paying for a project called Have a Meeting, How to Transfer an Element from One List to Another. And to encourage donors to pay the money required to do that is not such an easy thing. And then to tell them, but it has to be like this, and it has to be like this, and it has to be like that. I can assure you it's not that simple. So I leave that to you, but...
Cyprus, please.
Merci. Non, c'était au cas où la réunion aura lieu à l'UNESCO. Bien sûr, s'il nous invite à notre pays, bien sûr qu'on ne va pas lui demander en plus la date. C'est au cas où cette réunion aura lieu à l'UNESCO. C'est tout.
Côte d'Ivoire, please.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Nous pensons qu'il faut laisser un peu de festivité au secrétariat pour organiser, déterminer le lieu et la date de la réunion afin que nous soyons cohérents avec nous-mêmes puisque nous recherchons des fonds. Merci, Madame la Présidente.
Well, I don't know if it's me who can bring this proposal, but what if we try to convene in the intergovernmental meeting we've been talking about, and for the record, we clarify that if there is no country adopting this meeting, then it should be, if it, as Cyprus proposed, if it's financed by UNESCO, then it has to be in Paris. I don't know if it's possible, but I don't see a solution here for the subject now. Or I don't know if you want to clarify something. Algeria, please. And Hungary.
Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente, mais cette réunion, de toute façon, ne pourra pas se tenir sur les fonds de l'UNESCO, puisqu'on a déjà décidé autrement. On a déjà décidé qu'elle allait se tenir sur fonds extra-budgétaires. Et qui dit fonds extra-budgétaires dit que c'est la partie organisatrice qui décide du lieu et de la date selon sa convenance. Parce qu'une partie de la donation pour organiser cette réunion est une donation en nature. Cela veut dire qu'on a tous organisé des réunions de cette sorte chez nous, dans nos pays respectifs. Cela veut dire utiliser les infrastructures du pays et utiliser les moyens locaux pour minimiser les coûts. Maintenant, organiser ça à Paris à des dates précises pour un bailleur de fonds, cela, comme l'a dit le secrétariat, me paraît un peu tiré par les cheveux. Je vous remercie, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Algeria. Please, Hungary, take the floor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just 2 points. One is a linguistic issue to align the text on the French this time, in particular of the open-ended intergovernmental working group, open-ended intergovernmental working group. And the second, maybe I reveal my ignorance, but why isn't there no paragraph calling in the same sense for extra budgetary funding for the open-ended working group itself, open-ended intergovernmental working group itself? Have there been previous decisions that have already called for it? Of course. Then we should perhaps recall it. Maybe I'm lost somewhere. Maybe paragraph 3 recalls those decisions. Maybe it would be better to make it explicit here somewhere that along the same lines as we do mention raising necessary funding for this expert meeting, there should be also a paragraph raising funding for the open-ended intergovernmental working group itself. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Hungary. We have something here is that we have only 5 minutes for translation, then we have to finish. So either we wrap now and we adopt the paragraph number 11 with any amendment you want, or we stop here and then we continue tomorrow.
Can I say something?
Yeah, Mr.
I would just like to emphasize that we have used exactly the same wording in other calls, in other past committees for open-ended working groups. And really, I'm not sure a donor is going to be mobilized. It's encouraging to, you could, just because there's a statement here. So I do believe I think there's nothing different here to previous calls for open-ended intergovernmental working groups. The Secretariat will work to find the funds, and the donor is what I'm trying to say. But we have the mics, the interpretation will cut in 5 minutes. I leave it to you to see where you want to take this. Yeah.
Senegal, please.
Je pense qu'on est déjà quand même au bout d'une longue journée, mais également de larges réflexions. On n'a qu'à adopter, je propose moi qu'on adopte. Le secrétariat sait son travail, nous connaissons notre travail. C'est au secrétariat, quand une décision est prise, d'aller chercher les moyens, d'aller chercher les bailleurs, que ça soit flexible, que ça soit moins contraignant, que ça soit libre, qu'on ne fixe pas de date, qu'on ne fixe pas de jour, de lieu. Vraiment, on libère et on laisse le secrétariat faire son job. Merci.
So, if the committee agrees, maybe we can adopt Senegal's proposal and adopt this paragraph. Do we have any comment, any objection? Okay, then it's adopted. And then we have an amendment on the paragraph 6, which is the 9, but I think we will come back to this tomorrow. I mean, we have 2 minutes more.
Unless, let's see if they adopt as amended or not. No, Cuba didn't want it, right? You already discussed.
The number 9, it's
Can we
already
go to
approved.
number 9?
Yeah, but we said, Tim, Mr. Curtis, we said we were going through all documents and then we'll be back to the 9th. So we didn't finish today. I think we can leave it for tomorrow.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. I would like to remind committee members that tomorrow we have decisions to make which are absolutely vital for us to continue our work and for you to have another committee next year. These include the election of the evaluation body, the place and date of the next committee meeting, as well as the item on the NGOs. So I would suggest, since we are quite behind schedule, that once we finish this item tomorrow, we do first the absolute essential items, which are statutorily required, and then we come to 13 and 15 after we have finished the items which we need in order to continue our work. I believe the Philippines
will take the floor.
Yes, we recognize that we're behind schedule, so perhaps we can already adopt this, so at least we have one item finished. So we would suggest, if there are no other, discussion points needed, we've already discussed this way too long, we can adopt this item, so at least tomorrow we can start on the statutory items that are needed for the next session. But this is just a proposal just to facilitate our work. I think we really spent too much time on this already. So we would suggest adopting the decision as a whole with the 2 amendments, and we can move to the next item already tomorrow morning.
I will ask 2 things. I would like the Secretariat to clarify how many points do we have in this document, how many items do we have, and then I would like to know if Cuba agrees with what Philippines just proposed.
As we understand, item 9 and then, the item 9 and 12 and then the overall paragraph. But what Philippines is saying, if the room agrees, is to just adopt the decision as a whole. No. And the 9, I understand, was the problematic one. Okay, I think we're about to lose interpretation. Thank you.
Zambia, please 1 second, because we have to...
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we'd like to support what Philippines has suggested, so to move ahead. Thank you.
Cuba, I would like to know if you agree. If you agree, we can move on, but I would like to have your... Okay. So, do we agree to adopt the document as it is now?
Yes.
Okay, adopted. So...
You have to read this.
Okay. Okay. Tomorrow morning, the Bureau will meet for the last time at 9 a.m. in the Hala Hall to complete its work. Vice chairs from Bulgaria, Colombia, Cote d'Ivoire, Palestine, Turkey, as well as our rapporteur should be on time. Allow me to remind that the new members of the Bureau for the 13th session of the Committee for Electoral Groups 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, as well as the rapporteur, shall be elected tomorrow. With that said, I declare today's sessions closed. Thank you.